No, that's hideous. Yeah. Imagine if I left all of this in and it was just me fiddling with lighting for like 20 minutes. Hello, friends. I'm recording this brief intro after having recounted everything I can remember of all 7 seasons of Once Upon a Time. Now, if this chaos behind me looks like something you're interested in, by all means stay, watch the video. If it doesn't, I don't blame you. It's chaos, and I know for a fact this video is going to be absurdly long, so I do not blame anyone for clicking away right now. If you do stay, however, just a few little content warnings at the beginning. So, Once Upon a Time is like essentially a soap opera, and it has every dramatic, ridiculous thing happen that you can imagine. There's pregnancy, there's murder, there's evil twins, and especially when I'm recapping the first couple of seasons, there was a lot of talk about adoption. So if that is something that is going to upset you, please bear that in mind. And another thing that I kind of touch on when I bring up the plot points, but I never really explore, is that there is a consistent issue of dubious consent. We see several times that characters are tricked into having sex with people who are disguised as other people, and it's really uncomfortable. It's much worse when you're watching the show and you actually have to sit through that plot line. But if just the mention of that is going to upset you, just bear that in mind. I will be talking about that at some point. Alright, I think that that's everything. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's just do it. Some of you will be wondering, oh, what's this video about? But a lot of you will be distracted because this video is so poorly framed. Why all the space? Because I have a lot that I'm gonna need to write down. What I wanted to do was buy a flip chart, and I had a whole vision in my head. I was gonna have a flip chart. It was gonna be like a kind of kooky professor giving a presentation. And then it turns out flip charts are like absurdly expensive, and we're not gonna do that. In this video, I am going to try and recount the plot of all 7 seasons of the show Once Upon a Time. Because the thing is, I watched this show, week to week as it aired. I have rewatched the first, I want to say 3, maybe 3.5 seasons a couple of times in the past. Not recently, but like maybe 5 years ago. I remember more of this show than frankly is justifiable. So I haven't watched any video essays, I haven't rewatched any episodes, I have not looked up the wiki plot synopses or anything like that. This is purely coming from what is in my brain. So, what is Once Upon a Time about? Well, we have got, and she's going in the middle because she is the most important specialist girl in the whole universe, we have got Emma Swan. So, episode 1 of Once Upon a Time, the pilot episode. We start out... Oh no, actually we might not start out with Emma. I think we start out in the Enchanted Forest. But I'm going to start with Emma, because again, she's the most important, she's the specialist girl. So we see Emma Swan. She's a beautiful blonde lady. She's got perfectly curled hair. She's in a little red dress and she's at a fancy restaurant. And a guy sits down across from her and oh look, they're on a first date and there's some nervous banter and it's kind of cute. And Emma reveals it's her birthday today. And the guy asks her, oh, what do you want for your birthday? Clearly being like, is it my dick? Do you want my dick for your birthday? And she says no. What she wants for her birthday is for him to go home to his wife and admit what he's done. Because it turns out Emma Swan is a bounty hunter. She's a bounty hunter. Now, I can't remember what crime the guy has committed or if this is more a kind of a PI situation. But she's not a private investigator. She's a bounty hunter. So the guy goes running from the restaurant and Emma just very casually, this guy is panicking. Emma very casually sashays along. She is wearing the most insane 9-inch stiletto heels. I get the dress. I get that she's like doing a honey trap for this dude. The fact that she has worn these shoes to work is an indication of what the costuming for this show is going to be like. I have a lot of issues with most of the footwear in this show. But yeah, the guy tries to get into his car to flee, but Emma has already put like a little, you know, what are they called? The clamp. She's clamped his car. He can't get away. He's trapped. Emma comes after him. She punches him out. She handcuffs him. Yay, this is Emma. She's a pretty lady. She can be flirty and fun, but also she's a badass, and also we know she's got a tragic backstory. It's implied immediately, tragic backstory, and also it's her birthday. We cut to the next scene. It's Emma getting home. She goes into her sad, lonely, dark apartment. She kicks off her ridiculous shoes. She goes into the kitchen. She opens a little paper bag, and she has bought herself a single cupcake, and she puts a little tiny little sad candle in the top, and she lights it, and she blows out her birthday candle all alone, because Emma, as we will learn, all alone in the world. Emma is all alone. Emma's an orphan. So she blows out her little candle, she makes a wish, she blows out the candle, and immediately there's a knock on the door. Who's at the door? She's suspicious, because again, she's a bounty hunter. There could be people after her. So she goes to the door, she opens it up, and there's a little kid there. Why is there a little kid at her door? Well, because he's her son. 10 years ago, Emma had a kid that she gave up for adoption. Henry has grown up in a town called Storybrooke, and he has come to find Emma because he says the mother that adopted him is secretly an evil witch, and she has bewitched the whole town. Everyone in the town is fairy tale creatures, but they don't remember that because his adopted mother has put a curse on them all. He tells Emma all this, and that she's the only one that can save them. And Emma is like, oh fuck, okay. He's talking about fairy tales as if they're real, and that's very concerning, and he has run away, like, I think is she in Chicago? Pretty sure it's either Chicago or Boston, where she is right now, which is a long way away from his home. He has come here all on his own. He's 10. She's like, this is not good. I'm taking you home. I'm concerned about your mental well-being. Emma and Henry get in the Yellow Beetle. They drive to his home in Storybrooke, Maine, where it turns out his adoptive mother, Regina Mills, and I'm excited to write down Regina, I love her. Regina Mills, who is obviously connected to Henry. Also, we're gonna find out, very much connected to Emma. So Regina Mills, Henry's adopted mother, also the mayor of this small town. So Emma knocks on the door, Gina answers it, she sees Henry and she's like, oh my god, there you are, why did you run away? I have been panicking, come in. So Emma obviously is like, hey, let me have a chat with you real quick. So I'm Henry's birth mother, he came to find me and I brought him back because, you know, you're his you're his parent. And I'm concerned about his mental well-being because of all these stories he's told me. And she's like, yeah, I'm aware of the stories, we're dealing with it, he has a therapist, like, it's fine. See, Emma, even though she believes she is not a fit parent, she never could have been a fit parent, which is why she gave Henry up for adoption, she still, you know, has cared about him over the years, she's thought about him, she's wondered if he was okay, and now she sees that he's very much not okay. So she is going to stay in town and just keep an eye on things and make sure that he's okay. Regina is very against this. She tries to get her to leave, which of course just makes Emma more suspicious. So these two, immediately, they've got issues. There's tension there. And what really pushes it over the edge is that, so, okay, this is stupid. I'm gonna write down, magic lying sense. This is very important in season 1, a little bit in season 2, and then they forget that it exists. But it is very important now. So Emma has this magic power, And she refers to it as a magic power, but she does not at this point believe in magic. It's her superpower, but it's like a sixth sense she kind of has, in like a metaphorical way, where she can always tell if someone is lying, which is really good in her line of work as a bounty hunter. She knows if someone's lying. But anyway, when Emma is having her like first real conversation with Regina, she asks Regina, "Do you love Henry?" Because Henry claims that Regina does not love him at all. So Emma asks, "Do you love him?" And Regina says, "Of course I do. He's my son." And Emma knows that she's lying. She can sense it. And so Emma's like, oh, something's going on here. So she decides she's going to stay in town. Regina's mayor, but not in a kind of traditional mayor role. Mayor is in mob boss that everyone's afraid to go against. So Emma is not allowed to stay in the only B&B in town because Regina doesn't like it. Emma tries to talk to Henry's therapist. She tries to talk to his teacher. Regina finds out she doesn't like it. But Henry's teacher, Miss Mary Margaret, I hate the name Mary Margaret and I refuse to write it on the board, but what I am going to write down is Snow White. Henry's teacher, Snow White. Guess who else she is? She's secretly Emma's mother. She's a very important character. I have a lot of issues with her. Not so much in the first series. I think she gets a pass in most of the first series. I have issues with her down the line. But essentially, we find out I have not talked at all about the Enchanted Forest. So the way episodes work in Once Upon a Time is essentially the same as they do in Lost, because it was made by people who worked on Lost. Can I remember their names? No. I'm not looking it up because that's the whole conceit of this video, is I'm not looking things up. But if you have seen Lost, or if you have watched Billiam's excellent 1,000-hour-long videos on Lost, you will know that the structure of a Lost episode is you've got the present-day main plotline going on, and then you have got the secondary plotline that is told in flashbacks that thematically links to what's going on present day. So in the pilot of Once Upon a Time, our flashback stories are to the Enchanted Forest. Because it turns out Henry's not crazy. Henry's the only one that knows what's going on. They are all fairy tale creatures. Regina Mills, in addition to being the mayor, is the evil queen. Gets an exclamation mark because of how evil she is. I lie. I love Regina, and frankly, she did nothing wrong. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. In the flashback portions of the episode, we find out that Regina, the evil queen, turns up at Snow White and Prince Charming as well. I'm going to write his name really small because he is irrelevant to everything. His name is David. Like, it just, he's irrelevant. So, David / Prince Charming. Regina turns up at their wedding. And she's like, hey, you thought you defeated me? Actually, I'm gonna ruin your happily ever after. Not just these two, but every single happy ending in all of fairy tale land is gonna be undone. Everyone's gonna be separated. Everyone's gonna forget who they are and be miserable forever. So obviously, you know, they want to try and stop this. Snow White has like a whole council of like the dwarves are there. There's other people there. I don't remember. They're not important. I'm pretty sure Jiminy Cricket is there. He's almost as irrelevant as David. So I'm not even going to bother putting him on the board. Actually, because he's less irrelevant than David. No, more? He's more irrelevant than David. So he's not even going on the board. But just bear in mind, there's also a cricket there. So at this meeting, they decide they're going to go and talk to... Where am I going to put him? Oh god, I'm not going to be able to spell this. Rumpull Okay, I'm gonna look up one thing, and this is the only thing I'm looking up. Rumpelstiltskin. Right? These two, they go to see Rumpelstiltskin. He is being held captive in a creepy basement cell under their castle? No, under Cinderella's castle. Maybe. I'm gonna write Cinderella with a question mark. She's not really relevant either, but she does come up some. Snow White and Prince Charming show up, and they're like, hey, so the evil queen put a curse on us? There's a curse happening. Can you tell us what the story is with the curse? And Rumpelstiltskin is like, hey, yeah, I'm evil and creepy, and I'll tell you, but for a price, because there's always a price with Rumpelstiltskin. They agree to tell Rumpelstiltskin not to give away their first child, but to tell him the name of their first child. So he finds out that firstly, Snow's pregnant. Prince Charming does not know, but she's pregnant. She knows she's pregnant. She hasn't told him yet because, again, he's irrelevant. But Rumpelstiltskin can sense this because he can sense when there's children because he's a creep. Rumpelstiltskin tells them that there is a way to basically the curse is gonna last until a special child, the child that Snow's pregnant with, it's gonna last 28 years. Yes? Is it 28 years? Yes. This curse is gonna last 28 years. I'm gonna write curse somewhere. Curse. 28 years. And then I'm gonna put a question mark because that might not be the right age. But anyway, the only one that can break it is Snow White and Prince Charming's child. And the only way that she can escape the curse is to go to another land. She's gonna have to live in another land for 28 years before she can come back and save everyone, because she is the savior, right? Okay, so they're like, how do we get her to this other land? And I think it's Rumpelstiltskin's like, oh, there's a magic tree. Ask Geppetto to make you something out of the magic tree. It's the magic tree. It's a similar magic tree to the one he made Pinocchio out of, because also Geppetto and Pinocchio were at this war council. Why Geppetto was there and why he brought his little wooden son, I couldn't tell you. Frankly, I don't think any of them belong on a war council, but they were there, so we know that he's a player in all this. So, Snow White tells him the name of her child. That concludes their bargain. And Rumpelstiltskin's like, hey, I know the name, Emma. If you haven't seen the show, by the way, you don't know how good that impression was, but it was spot on. That's how he is. He's like, I know all the things. And like, to be clear, Rumpelstiltskin's played by Robert Carlyle, who I believe has won an Oscar. Like, he's a legitimate, respected actor. Why he's on this show, I assume he just needed the paycheck, honestly, which, you know, fair enough. People need to get paid. But he's clearly having so much fun. He's just like, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want on this stupid show, and I'm gonna leap around and go, and it's great. Good for him. I love Robert Carlyle. So, back in present day times, Emma meets Snow White, who is going by the name Mary Margaret. And again, I'm not gonna write Mary Margaret on the board, because the name is Mary Margaret, and I hate it. And it fills me with fury, and I can forgive it more in Series 1. Because again, everyone's been given their curse names, and Mary Margaret, that name is a curse, so that's fine. And it's not, I have nothing against the name Mary, I have nothing against the name Margaret, but put together Mary Margaret, and everyone says the whole title, and it's just such a mouthful, and it annoys me every time someone says it. So Emma goes to talk to Mary Margaret, who's actually Snow White, and she is school teacher. She's Henry's teacher, and she thought that she would give him this book of fairy tales because fairy tales are something that she finds comforting, and she thought he might find some comfort in it. And that massively backfired on her because Henry started taking these very literally, which is not what she wanted. But actually, in reality, like, that book that he has that she gave him is magic. It just appeared in her wardrobe because it's part of the I don't know, the savior magic and it was meant to be, and also in future seasons it's going to turn out that Henry is the author, which is a magical you know what, we're not there yet, but I'm just going to write down author. And it's also canon that the author before Henry, or possibly the one before Henry, was Walt Disney. So canonically in this world, Walt Disney exists, and he was not only just like a capitalist monster and, you know, a good artist, but also a capitalist monster. He was actually a magic reality changer, and all of the films that he made were actually real and came true. And also he maybe created the universe. It's again, this is unclear. We're not going to worry about this right now, but just bear in mind this is the kind of bullshit we're going to get to. Anyway, back in the present day, Snow White feels bad because she gave Henry the book that he's now obsessed with. She meant well, but she kind of feels bad about it. She's concerned about him. Emma and Snow bond about their mutual concern for Henry. Back in the past, in the Enchanted Forest, Geppetto is he's made a wardrobe out of this tree. Why it has to be a wardrobe, I couldn't tell you. Why couldn't it be a boat or a suit of armor or literally anything else? No, he made a wardrobe because the show wants to have like Narnia vibes. So he makes a wardrobe. The plan is the wardrobe's only big enough for one. Now it turns out that's a lie. It's actually big enough for two. But Geppetto wanted to smuggle his little wooden son into it and send him to escape the curse as well. We don't know that yet. That's thrown in later. Plot twist, Snow goes into labor. And this is bad. It's too early, because if she gives birth before she can get in the wardrobe, then the baby's gonna have to go alone. Also, the curse is a big magical scary cloud, and it's getting really close to the castle, and she's just given birth and she's crying, and it's really, really sad. And so she has to say goodbye to her child. Prince Charming has to take the child and run it to the wardrobe. And meanwhile, like, evil dudes come in and he has to like sword fight them one-handed while he's trying to protect the child. And actually, all of this, really fucking sad. Really well done, well executed, super fucking tragic. Thematically really tragic, because Snow White had to give up Emma, her beloved child that she did not want to give up, in order to save her. Similarly, we will find out towards the end of the season, Emma had to give up Henry because, spoilers, Emma gave birth to Henry when she was in jail. She found out she was pregnant when she went to jail, and she felt that she was such a terrible fuck up, she could never raise that child, so she gave him up for adoption. So we have two women having to, like, we have the parallel between mother and daughter, where they both had to give up their child, even though they didn't want to, in order to give them a better life and a chance to, like, survive. And it's really fucking sad. I think that's pretty much the pilot. Like, we see Snow White and Prince Charming sending Emma off. They send their little baby into essentially our world to protect her. She grows up for 28 years. She grows up an orphan, in and out of foster care. They hoped someone would, like, take her in and take care of her. That did not end up happening. Emma ended up being alone for 28 years, which, you know, she has a lot of issues. I'm gonna write, even though both of her parents are alive, I feel like an important facet of Emma is that she is an orphan. Even once she, like, finds her parents and everyone gets their memories back and they're starting to live as a family, Emma carries this trauma of, like, having grown up alone and unloved and with no real support system. And that's a very important part of her character, so I am gonna write orphan. Oh, something I didn't mention is when Emma gets to town, she runs into a dude called Mr. Gold, who runs the pawn shop. It's Rumpelstiltskin. It's Rumpelstiltskin in human form, because when he's in the fairy tale land, he's like all scaly and like gold and glittery, and stylistically it's a very odd choice, and it's because he has to double up as the Beast, because again, later on we find out he is the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. I'm gonna put a question mark here next to Belle. Not because I don't know her, but because, like, ooh, mystery. Mr. Gold, you know, he's under the curse as well, and we just assume, oh, he doesn't have his memories. But he hears that her name is Emma. And we see something happen. So just a light goes on behind his eyes. Because Snow White bartered the name of her child to Rumpelstiltskin back in the Enchanted Forest to find out the information of how to save everybody from the curse. Rumpelstiltskin used the knowledge of her name and wove it into the fabric of the curse with magic. I can't remember exactly how, but it was so when he heard the name Emma, he would get his memories back. So now Rumpelstiltskin has his memories back. The only people that remember their lives before that and that everyone was cursed are Rumpelstiltskin and Regina. So now Rumpelstiltskin / Mr. Gold and Regina are linked in knowing. Also, he makes some, like, he doesn't admit full out that, like, he knows what's going on, but he just goes to her and he's like, I'm gonna make some subtle hints that maybe I know who I am and who you are. So she can't pin him down for definite, but she suspects he knows, and he absolutely does know. Emma doesn't know anything. Snow doesn't know anything. Henry thinks he knows everything, but actually he's not clear on the details because he's 10. David doesn't know anything. Turns out David's in a coma. We see Snow in the episode, because she's such a sweet, you know, Disney princess, when she's not working in the school, she volunteers in the hospital, kind of, you know, sitting with patients and bringing them flowers and just generally, like, being nice and being there. And we see her bringing fresh flowers to the bed of a John Doe. Nobody knows who he is. He's been in a coma for years. He got hit by a car and they haven't been able to find his ID or find his family or anything. And twist, it's Prince Charming. So, you know, she visits Prince Charming, but she doesn't know who he is, and he's asleep, and it's a nice little parallel to the fact that, you know, she was asleep, dead in her coffin, and he woke her up with True Love's kiss, and, well, that's the beginning of the episode, I think. Yes, the episode begins in the Enchanted Forest, and we see Snow White in her coffin, Prince Charming turns up, and he kisses her, and it's True Love's kiss, and it breaks the spell, and yay. So I'm pretty sure, no, there's another thing. The Storybook, I never read it, Storybook. I'm running out of space. So there's a broken town clock. It has been broken as long as anyone can remember. And when, at the end of the pilot, Emma finally decides that she's going to stay in Storybrooke, the clock magically starts working again. So it's not broken anymore. Emma has saved the clock, you might say, from being broken. But also it's like time has started moving in this world again. They have been trapped for 28 years in this very stagnant town, and now things are beginning to move. So that is the pilot of Once Upon a Time. I have been talking for almost an hour, and we've only discussed the pilot, which concerns me. Frankly, if I am going to do all 7 seasons of this show, should I make this into 7 videos where I just try to remember the plot of... That's not going to work. See, I remember the pilot because the pilot's good, alright? It's not a perfect episode, it's not a perfect show, but it's a really good pilot. It sets up everything, it gives us the characters we need to know, you know, it gives us the vibe of this world, it really establishes everything well. It's very memorable. The show is not always that. There are certainly plot points in the future. I don't remember when they happen or why they happen. I just have random images. God, my throat hurts from talking. I'm gonna take a break right now. Okay, it is the next day. It's very cold, which is why I'm bundled up. I have tea. So I am gonna try, in the space of me drinking this cup of tea from my lovely octopus mug, in that time I'm gonna try and get through all of series 1. As you can see, there have been some addition. I've added some more space to the wall. Also, you can see here, missing characters. This is going to become important and we're going to talk about this. Right. From here on, my memories are going to get a lot less specific. Again, like I said, the pilot is really good and I have very clear memories of the pilot. After that, I'm not going to be super episode specific, but okay, so next, what happens? So at the very end of the pilot, we see that time has started again in Storybrooke. And that is because Emma's presence in the town is starting to weaken the curse. It's not broken entirely. It's not gonna, spoiler alert, it's not gonna be broken until the end of season 1. But Emma just being there and interacting with people is starting to weaken the effects of the curse. People are starting to not necessarily get their memories back, but sort of get a sense of self back. Oh, we didn't put it, okay. So, where are they gonna go? Granny plus Ruby. And Ruby is, of course, Red Riding Hood. Because everything's got a twist on this show. She's also, in fact, they both, we learned this later in the season, but I'm just gonna tell you now because, you know, it's important. Both of these, werewolves. So, Granny owns the town diner where Ruby works, and connected to the diner is also like a little kind of guest house B&B sort of at the back. That is where Emma's staying initially, but Regina intimidates Granny into kicking her out, so Emma's sleeping in her car, in her little yellow Beetle that I love. Snow sees her sleeping in her car and she's like, "You can't sleep in your car. That's terrible. You can come stay with me in my beautiful loft." I'm gonna write loft. We spend so much time in this fucking loft. But yes, Emma is living with Snow and she's trying to spend time with Henry, but they have to do it in secret because Regina has forbidden Henry from talking to Emma. You see, now with the lights on and the heaters on, now I'm too hot. I'm gonna have to take this off. Hang on. I guarantee you in a second I'm gonna get cold again, and this is just gonna be on and off all throughout the video, and it's gonna be a continuity nightmare. So during the beginning of series 1, Emma is starting to get to know people in the town, right? Ruby is very insistent. She's gonna be friends with Emma. I love Ruby. Ruby is a character that really gets neglected by the narrative. When we get onto missing characters, Ruby's gonna migrate over there. Ruby is also friends with Cinderella. I can't remember what her curse name is. She's gonna end up over here as well, far sooner than Ruby does. Now we see in Cinderella's flashback episode, basically it's the traditional Cinderella story. It's the night of the ball. She's crying, she can't go. Her fairy godmother turns up and then is immediately murdered by Rumpelstiltskin, who steals her magic wand. And Cinderella's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. I needed a wand, but I'll be your fairy godmother if you want. You can make a deal with me." So, Cinderella makes a deal with Rumpelstiltskin that, he'll do all the fairy godmother things, he'll send her to the ball, but she has to give him her firstborn child. I can't remember whether she knows that this is the deal or not. I think she's tricked into it somehow, but yeah, anyway, this deal is signed where she has to give him her firstborn child. Now, in present day, in Curseland, Cinderella is pregnant. She's a pregnant teenager, which, she's having a lot of struggles. Her family is not supportive of her. And so she has agreed to give Mr. Gold, her baby. Because it turns out Mr. Gold is not only a pawnbroker and landlord of most of the town, he's also a black market baby dealer. We see him do this a lot. Like, it turns out Rumpelstiltskin, as Mr. Gold within the curse, before he gets his memories back, he gets Henry for Regina. She goes to Mr. Gold and she's like, "Hey, get me a baby." And even though he doesn't have his magic or his memories, his innate kind of magic that he's woven into the curse allows him to facilitate getting Henry, because Henry is Emma's kid. Henry, being in Storybrooke, will bring Emma eventually to Storybrooke. So this is like part of the curse breaking, manifesting itself. And when she finds out who Emma is, she goes to Rumpelstiltskin, she's like, "Oh my god, you did this on purpose." And he pretends, I don't know what you mean. I don't have any memories. I'm just innocent Mr. Gold, the baby dealer. So back in the Cinderella episode, Cindy is very upset because she has signed this contract to give Mr. Gold her baby. Even though she doesn't want to, she has been pressured into it by her family, the family of the baby's father, and Mr. Gold. And basically everyone is telling her, you're not responsible enough to have this baby, you have to give this baby away. And Emma, of course, hears this, and she's like, that's fucked up and I'm not going to let that happen. If you want to keep your kid, I am going to do everything in my power to make sure you get to keep your kid. So Emma comes in and she intimidates Mr. Gold, and she's like, this is illegal, you can't buy and sell babies. And he's like, I can do whatever I want. From Emma's perspective, she's given up Henry, she regrets it, she doesn't want anyone else to go through what she went through. So Cinderella gets to keep her baby, and this is the first real happily ever after that happens within the curse, and it seriously pisses off Regina. I'm pretty sure Cinderella is 18, and it's important to know, right? Emma's 28. Emma had Henry 10 years ago. When she gave birth to Henry, she was 18. And the show really wants you to not think about this. There is some moralizing that goes on, and it goes beyond just the way Emma feels as a character, and it kind of informs the wider narrative, which I don't agree with. But Emma feels a lot of regret and guilt for giving up Henry. Even though she was a teenager who was in jail, who had literally no support in the entire world, no family, she had been abandoned by Henry's father. We are going to get into Henry's father. That's another character that I fucking hate. But when we get to that, when I start talking about this whole situation and how Emma got pregnant, bear in mind, she's a child when this is happening. She is 17, 18 when this is all going down. So Cinderella becomes part of the little girl gang of Ruby, Emma, and Snow for a little bit, but then she kind of disappears. And it's a real shame because honestly, I think this could have been a great character, but she gets abandoned. So she is going to be the first character that goes into missing characters. Now the next character who is going to end up on this list that we have to talk about is Graham. I'm going to write down Graham. This is another character I hate. Graham is the huntsman. He worked for Regina in the Enchanted Forest. He is the huntsman that she hires to go kill Snow. Now in the curse, he is the sheriff of the town, and adding to Regina's kind of mob boss mayor energy, she completely controls this man. Also, they're fucking. Graham, we learn in the Enchanted Forest flashbacks, either was raised by wolves, is a werewolf, is some sort of wolf creature. I can't really remember, but I'm gonna link him down to werewolves. He's got that kind of vibe. So Graham and Regina within the curse are having an affair. But Graham, he gets very flirty with Emma. He really likes her. But we find out in Graham's flashback episode that Graham is not only under Regina's thumb, he is literally controlled by her. Now I'm pretty sure this is where we learn about hearts. So I'm gonna draw a heart and then magic. So we find out that really powerful magic users are able to remove the beating hearts out of people and control them that way. So a person can live without their heart, but they cannot feel true love. And also, if you whisper into their heart, you can force them to do things. Regina owns Graham's heart. She also, I don't know if we find that out in this episode, but Regina currently does not have her own heart in her chest. Because if you walk around with your heart in your chest, you're vulnerable. Someone can grab out that heart. So what Regina has done is she has taken out her own heart and she has locked it away somewhere safe. So no one can ever control her, but also she doesn't have to feel true love, which also means she does not have to feel grief, because Regina has a real tragic backstory, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But remember in the pilot where Emma asked Regina whether she loved Henry, and Regina said yes, and Emma could sense that she was lying. That was true, it was a lie, but not because Regina is not capable of loving Henry, not because she doesn't want to love Henry, but she physically, in this state, cannot feel real love. So while she thinks that she loves Henry and she acts as if she loves Henry, she cannot feel that real emotion of love without her heart in her chest. Anyway, Graham starts getting his memories back, I think because he's hanging out with Emma so much. Graham's set up that he is going to be Emma's love interest, right? This is built up over a few episodes. But what happens is Graham is played by Jamie Dornan. Jamie Dornan, during the beginning of production here, got cast as Christian Grey. So he had to leave the show to go be Christian Grey. So they have to pretty suddenly write Graham out. So what happens is Graham leaves Regina, he goes to Emma. At this point, Emma has become a deputy. I didn't talk about that, right? Emma's a cop, which, ugh, gross. She becomes sheriff because Regina, after being scorned by Graham and him leaving her for Emma, Regina crushes his heart in her bare hand. It's actually really cool. It crumples to dust, and as that's happening, Graham just collapses and dies, and he ends up dying in Emma's arms. I'm gonna mark down Graham, dead. And he's gonna go over here. Now, I know Graham is not technically missing. He's not one of those characters that actually just disappears without a trace. He's properly written out, but I think it's so clear that he was supposed to be a big part of the show, and they had to seriously scramble and rewrite and give his plot lines to other people. So that, to me, is why he goes in the missing characters category, because he was sort of taken out of the show ahead of his time. Which is fine by me, because I hate Graham. And I want to make clear, that's nothing against Jamie Dornan as an actor. I do have beef with Jamie Dornan as an actor, but that's purely because of the movie Wild Mountain Thyme. At this point in time, he'd done nothing wrong. And I do just want to stress, when I talk about hating certain characters, when I talk about writing decisions that I don't care for or narratives that I don't care for, I have nothing against any of the actors in the show. I think they're all doing a wonderful job. And even the writers, I think. So I'm not going to really get into in this video the production elements of the show, but it was clearly, this show was always relatively low budget. There was clearly a lot of studio interference going on behind the scenes and just production issues, the amount of characters that end up missing because the actors got offered better jobs and left. It's just staggering. So I think, the fact that there's anything good going on in this show is miraculous, frankly, and it really is a testament to the talent of both the writers that came and go behind the scenes and also all of the actors. So just bear in mind, when I say something negative, it's not directed to any real life person. It is directed to these fictional characters, and I will not apologize for hating fictional characters. You can argue with me in the comments if you want to, but I hate some of these people, and I will let you know why. I've finished my tea, and we're nowhere near done with series 1. I don't know what order these things happen in, but the nuns! Oh god, I don't want to talk. Okay, fucking nuns, right? We get a flashback episode. Oh, missing character. You've seen Amy Acker. She's incredible. She's guest starred on a lot of things, and probably most notably, she played Fred in the Angel series. I love her. She's amazing. She's incredibly talented. They introduce her in season 1. She's only there for 1 episode, and because they cast Amy Acker as the character, they couldn't get her back. She's a busy lady, which means that her character disappears, even though it makes no sense for her to be gone. So, in Storybrooke, the town is having their lantern candle festival, and the local nuns, because there are nuns, there's a convent in town apparently. We find this out sort of mid-season 1, and we just have to accept it. There are nuns here. Grumpy the dwarf. The dwarves within the curse world of Storybrooke are miners in the local mine, because there's also a mine. Anyway, the nuns are selling candles to raise money for the convent, And Grumpy, who is a grumpy miner that like lives around here, he decides that he's going to help the nuns, which is out of character for him. But it's because he has a crush on the Amy Acker nun. They have kind of nice chemistry. I like it. I honestly don't know if I'm emotionally prepared to tell you this, but I'm just going to have to do it. So in the flashback part of this episode, we learn all of these nuns that we have met in Storybrooke, they're actually fairies. So part of the curse was that all of the fairies in the Enchanted Forest got turned into nuns. I'm going to worry about that in a second, because we're just going to stay with the plot of this particular episode. So, this one Amy Acker fairy, right? She's the ditzy, klutzy one of the bunch. And she's been given the very important job. It's the first time she's been given this much responsibility. She has to go to the dwarf mines and collect the magic dust. It's fairy dust, but the dwarves mine it. It doesn't matter. Point is, she meets Grumpy. Grumpy, who's just been born. And do you want to know how dwarves are born? They hatch out of eggs. Who lays the eggs? We don't know. We never find out. Just eggs. There's just large eggs here, and men, tiny men, come out of them, fully grown and fully clothed, and they're handed a pickaxe, and once they hold the pickaxe, magically their personality is imprinted on the pickaxe, and their name comes up, and that's how they get named, is that the pickaxe magic names them based on their personality. So Grumpy comes out of his egg, he's handed a pickaxe, and it says happy. Because he's happy, because he's a nice, happy man. So Happy the dwarf, who's just come out of an egg, meets Amy Acker, fairy nun, and they fall instantly in love. But dwarves aren't supposed to fall in love because they reproduce asexually through eggs, which is why, coincidentally, there are no female dwarves in this universe, just male dwarves coming out of eggs. Again, we are never told who lays these eggs. Anyway, dwarves are not supposed to fall in love, fairies are not supposed to fall in love, so this is forbidden from both sides. But it doesn't matter because they're in love. So Amy Acker, fairy nun, and Happy the dwarf decide that they're going to run away together and have adventures. Blue, who is she's the mother superior of the nuns in Storybrooke, and she is the head fairy in the Enchanted Forest. She convinces Amy Acker that she cannot do this, she cannot abandon her duty. It would be bad for her, and it would also be bad for Happy the dwarf, and the kindest thing she can do is just abandon him. So she abandons him. And Happy the dwarf, resenting the fact that he has been abandoned, goes back to the mine and mines so hard that he breaks his axe. He gets a new axe, he picks it up, and the name on it is Grumpy, because his personality has been fundamentally changed by this experience. The reason he is so angry and the reason his life is terrible is because one woman let him down one time, and we're not going to unpack that. Grumpy is not the best example of this, because Grumpy's not a bad person, he just has kind of a bad attitude, but fundamentally, he's a good person that just is grumpy. But we see a lot with the male villains here, that they turned evil because of a woman. We see that over and over again. And it's not a great look. See, I knew this would happen. I'm cold again. For fuck's sake. There's more things that happen in Series 1. In each episode, we get the backstory of a different character. We get Jiminy Cricket's backstory. Jiminy Cricket's now a therapist. Again, I don't want to put him on the board because he's so irrelevant. But Jiminy Cricket, he's now Dr. I don't remember his curse name, but Jiminy Cricket is a therapist. He's Henry's therapist. He's a very bad therapist. He has a Dalmatian called Pongo, who is the Dalmatian from 101 Dalmatians. In the future, we are gonna get introduced to Cruella de Vil. The dog does not come up in relation to her, which is a very strange choice. Regina's tragic backstory. It makes me so happy. So, Regina is, I don't know, let's say 18. in the flashbacks of this episode, 18, 19, whatever. She's a rich lady. Her family are kind of wealthy. They're not royalty, but they're like wealthy within the Enchanted Forest. And Regina loves horses. She just loves riding her horse. The only thing she loves more than riding her horse is the stable boy that helps her take care of her horse. They're fully in love. It's very, very sweet. But Regina's mother, Cora, I'm gonna write down Cora. This woman, she's gonna become important later. So Regina's mother, Cora, has arranged a marriage for her. She wants Regina to marry Snow White's father, the king. Because Snow White's mother already dead at this point. So Cora has orchestrated a wedding between the two of them. And obviously Regina is against this, but she can't say why, because her mother is a very powerful witch. She does not want to go against her. She does not want to put her boyfriend in danger, so she accepts this. She then meets little child Snow. When the king and Snow White turn up, she meets them both. The king is pretty nice, but she's not in love with him, so there's nothing against him as a person, she just doesn't love him. And Snow White initially really likes Regina, and Regina really likes this little girl. You know, they're really getting on, but Snow White can see that Regina's really sad. And she's like, hey, why are you so sad? What's wrong? Regina admits to her that she is upset because she doesn't want to marry Snow White's father. And initially Snow is like kind of upset. She's like, oh, but you're so nice and I want you to be my stepmother, and like, what's wrong with my dad? And Regina's like, no, there's nothing wrong with your dad at all. It's just that I am already in love with someone, and that's why I don't want to marry your father, because I'm in love with someone else. And so Snow is like, oh my god, okay, well that makes sense. That's fine then. Let's go tell your mother that you're in love with someone else so you can't get married. And Regina's like, no, you can't do that. My mother is not a nice person. Snow has like always been surrounded by so much love and acceptance that like she cannot conceptualize the idea of a mother who would treat her daughter badly. So she just assumes that like Regina is too nervous to tell her mother that she's in love with someone else. Regina makes Snow promise that she will never tell anyone about her stable boy boyfriend. And Snow does promise. However, Cora comes along, and Cora kind of senses something's up. So she manipulates Snow. And again, Snow is a child. She's like 10 at this point, right? Cora comes in and she pretends to be all nice. And she's like, hey, I know Regina's upset about something. I know she doesn't want this marriage to go through, but like, I think it would be the best thing for her. And I just don't understand why she doesn't want to marry your father. She won't talk to me. I don't know what to do. And so Snow goes, well, it's supposed to be a secret, but you know, you really won't be angry? And Cora's like, I will never be angry with Regina. The only thing I want is for her to be happy. And so Snow goes, oh, okay, well, the truth is that she's already in love with the stable boy. Daniel! Oh, his name is Daniel. Hang on. Daniel. Anyway, Snow tells Cora that Regina is in love with Daniel. And Cora's like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then she sends Snow off to bed. Regina is about to run away with Daniel. Because during her conversation with Snow, Snow is like, hey, if you can't tell your mother, you still have to be with Daniel. Like, you should run away. And Regina's like, oh my god, you're so right. Thank you so much, small child. And Snow, like, for Snow, this is a real sacrifice, because Snow has, like, absolutely just grown to love Regina and really wants her to be her stepmother. But she can see that the best thing for Regina to do is to follow her heart. So she encourages her to do that. And they have this kind of tearful goodbye, and it's really very sweet. Regina goes to the barn to meet Daniel, to run away with him. And then there's her mother. And her mother, in front of her face, rips Daniel's heart out of his chest and crushes it in her hand. And basically says to Regina, like, that's your fault. If you had just left the boy alone and done what you were told, he'd still be alive. You know, this is entirely on you. I've done nothing wrong in this situation. I'm just enforcing the rules in my house. And obviously, this breaks Regina's heart, but it also kind of fucks her up, because she knows that, like, her mother found this out because of Snow. In her mind, Snow is the reason that Daniel is dead. And all of this, like, grief that she's feeling just turns to rage. So the next day, she's getting ready for the wedding. And Snow's like, well, what are you doing here? What's going on? And Regina's like, no, I thought about it and I decided I'm going to marry your father instead. He's a much better match for me. And like Snow just like doesn't understand what's going on. She can sense something's wrong, but she's like, okay, so we're going to be a happy family? And Regina's like, yes, we're going to be such a happy family. Just fully gone into evil queen mode. So I think this is such a great example of what's great about this show, because we get these villains and we get to see them being their villainous selves, and you know, a lot of the times the casting in this show is actually really good. We get really charismatic actors playing the villains, so we're already kind of invested in them because they're fun to watch. But then the show will hit us with this really tragic backstory. Now, later into the series, I think this gets poorer, but like in the start, we get these backstories for these villains that are tragic and yet don't try and justify their actions. So everything Regina's doing, still terrible. Still fundamentally a villain. But we understand what is motivating her. We understand her grief. We understand why she ripped her heart out of her chest to make herself never feel real emotions again. Because she is so consumed by grief. We learn in later episodes the full extent of like Cora's abuse of Regina. Like, Regina had a very abusive mother and a neglectful father, and everyone she's loved has been taken away from her. So, you know, she did nothing wrong. That's me saying she did nothing wrong because I love her. But like, the show is very clear. She did a lot of wrong things. She's done a lot of bad. But we understand who she is as a character. We understand what's driving it. And we also understand that Regina in the past has been a good person, has the ability to be a good person, but she needs to put in the work to undo what she's done if she wants to be a good person again. And like, that's what makes her such a fascinating character. I love Regina. I love Lana Parrilla, who plays Regina, is just absurdly talented. Every moment, like, this is a character that could have been really annoying. And yet Lana Parrilla just gives her so much life, so much charisma. She's so incredible. I love Regina. Back in Storybrooke, Emma and Regina obviously still having beef. At one point, I think it might be like episode 2 or 3, it's pretty early in the series, Emma cuts down Regina's apple tree. She has this magical apple tree in the garden because, you know, she's the evil queen. She's obsessed with apples. She bakes with apples. There's evil apples going on. Emma cuts it down with a chainsaw, and she's wearing like just like jeans and this like really tight white tank top, and she's got a chainsaw, and she's full of like this righteous rage. And Regina comes out, and she's in her, because Regina's always in like sexy businesswoman attire. Regina comes out and they have this standoff, and you know, me as a queer person watching it, I'm just like, pretty ladies and chainsaws. I'm so mature, Jesus. Anyway, Emma cutting down this tree is really when like war is declared. Before this it's kind of been Cold War, but now it is all out war between these two. Graham is obviously a casualty of that war, but the person that suffers the most through all of this is Henry, obviously. Henry is becoming increasingly like terrified of Regina because he's seeing more and more like she's becoming a little bit unhinged, obviously, because things are out of her control now. Meanwhile, Henry is like forming a really strong relationship with Emma, but there's still this underlying thing of like, in Henry's mind, Emma abandoned him, and he needs her to start believing in magic, and the fact that she has sort of basically started lying and pretending she does believe in magic, but they need to prove it somehow. Basically, she has decided to go along with what she perceives as his delusions in order to try and help him get through it. So she is like quietly being on his side while trying to disprove his theories, so he will come to the conclusion himself that this is not real. And ultimately, when Henry finds this out, he is like devastated, and he refuses to talk to Emma, and he runs right back to Regina, which was Regina's plan. Like, Regina orchestrates him finding this out, and he goes back to Regina because you know, at the end of the day, she's been his parent all his life. So even though he literally knows that she's an evil queen, she's the reliable one, so he goes right back to her. There's some other stuff going on too. I think, does Pinocchio turn up? Yes, he does. Towards the end of the season, I don't want to write Pinocchio on the, what's his name? August? It's gonna say August, right. In the last few episodes of the season, a new character rides into town, and this is unheard of. People do not come to Storybrooke. Emma is the only person that has come to Storybrooke in 28 years, but because she's weakening the curse, August can get in. We're going to refer to him as August, because I can't spell Pinocchio. He has turned up with a magical typewriter and a magical book, and he befriends Henry. He does this by like showing interest in Henry's storybook that he carries everywhere, and he seems to really believe Henry when he tells him about fairy tales. And I, immediately, as a viewer, I'm suspicious of this man. I'm very suspicious of this handsome man in leather who's ridden on a motorbike and has suddenly befriended this child. He starts flirting with Emma, and it's like, oh, is this the dude they're gonna replace Graham with? Sort of, but also, okay, we need to get into August's backstory. Bear in mind, this character gonna end up over here, in a sort of unique way, but let's just get into it. So August, right? August is Pinocchio. We get flashbacks. He's Pinocchio. He is Geppetto's son. At the point when the curse happens, he's already become human. I know I referred to him in the pilot as the little wooden son. And I'm gonna keep doing that because it's funnier. But bear in mind, like, in the pilot, he's already human. So this is when we get the reveal that Geppetto lied to Snow when he said only one person could fit in the wardrobe. He actually made room for two, because he was intending to send Pinocchio through as well. And he hid Pinocchio in that wardrobe. Now, when Snow finds this out, which I don't know if that happens until season 2, I can't remember. I think it might be season 2. But when Snow finds this out, she's obviously furious, because she could have gone with Emma, and they could have been together for like 28 years. Emma could have had a family, like not been completely alone her whole life. Snow could have like raised her child the way she wanted to. But because Geppetto was so fucking selfish and insisted on like sending August away, like August would have been fine. They were all frozen in time and like, yeah, they're suffering. But like, the point of sending Emma through is that that suffering is not going to last. They're going to be saved after 28 years. Anyway, we flash back. Pinocchio at this point, I think he's like 8 or something. Like he's a small child. And Geppetto hides him in the wardrobe and he's like, hey, you're going to go through with baby Emma. It is your duty to take care of her. You have to take care of her, small child. You are responsible for this baby. So they go through and we see what happens once they're sent through the wardrobe. They end up, August and holding tiny baby Emma, who's like literally just been born, they end up in a forest in our world. And August is kind of walking along and he's, you know, looking for help, and they end up on the side of the road. And he doesn't know what to do. He's never seen a car before. He's just a tiny child, terrified, holding a baby, doesn't know what to do. They are found and brought to social services, and they are in an orphanage. Initially, August is trying to keep his promise and keep an eye on Emma. And then eventually, he just has enough and he leaves. I think it's that Emma, as a little baby, she gets adopted for a very short time. She ends up getting adopted. And so August, they won't take August as well. So he's like, hey, you go be with that family. And August just like doing his own thing. I think he's still like 8 at this point. We cannot blame this child. This is all on Geppetto. We cut to 28 years later. August has grown up. He's in his 30s now. He does not really think about Emma at all. He's just like living his life, and it's pretty hedonistic life. Then suddenly, he starts to turn to wood. And this is because at this exact moment when he starts to turn to wood again, it is when Emma has entered Storybrooke. So it's when basically when the clock has started again, the curse is starting to wane. And it turns out the curse is the thing that has been keeping him human. Does that make sense? No, not really. This is what his motivation is in coming to Storybrooke. I think it's said that like he's tried to find Storybrooke a few times so he can get back to like Geppetto and the rest of his people. But like literally you cannot find Storybrooke until Emma gets there. But anyway, August shows up on his motorbike. He's got a little bit of a limp, and that's because one of his legs turned into wood. August is very invested in getting Emma to believe in magic so that she can break the curse before he turns fully into a little wooden boy again. Emma finds out this is his motivation. He ends up showing her his wooden leg, and we as the audience see that it's wooden, but Emma cannot see that it's wooden. She just sees regular skin. So she thinks he's crazy. She is very concerned about him spending time with Henry, so she basically tells him to fuck off and leave her and Henry alone. And August is like, oh no, everything's terrible, blah. And then he fully turns to wood. So we have the pleasure, the dubious pleasure, of seeing like kind of CGI, fully wooden adult man. And it's really, really disturbing looking. So we get to the finale, right? And Regina had had enough. She cannot cope with Emma anymore. She's losing the battle for dominance. So she decides she's gonna put a sleeping curse on Emma. And she uses the last of her magic apples from the tree that Emma cut down. She uses them to bake apple turnovers, right? And she invites Emma over and she's like, hey, I want to call a truce. I want to call a truce because clearly Henry is the one suffering in all of this. He wants to have a relationship with you. I want to keep my relationship with Henry. So we need to just start getting along. And Emma's like, you know what? I agree. That's a good idea. And I think Emma has decided she's going to leave town at this point. She's going back to Boston or Chicago, probably Boston. When people try to leave Storybrooke, they always seem to want to go to Boston. Nothing against Boston. I've never been to Boston. I'm sure it's a lovely place. It's just interesting that that seems to be the only city anyone wants to go to. Like, they just want to go to Boston. Oh, I forgot. David comes out of his coma. So he is coma no more, right? He wakes up as part of the curse weakening. He wakes up and he doesn't remember anything. He has amnesia, like fully amnesia. Not just like curse memories, but like no memories at all. And he falls in love with Snow White. She falls in love with him. They're like, oh, this is great. And then, what's her face turns up. What's her name? I'm gonna call her Karen. Caroline? Is it Caroline? Let's say Caroline, right? Caroline. Caroline shows up. Now, apparently, Caroline has been in Boston this whole time, which cannot be true because she's under the curse. Because she is the woman that David was engaged to. So it turns out we get more backstory. We need to, before I can finish this, we need to get into the backstory here. So, we see Prince Charming in a carriage riding through the Enchanted Forest. He's with his fiancée. Who's his fiancée? This lady here, whose name may or may not be Caroline. He's riding along, and all of a sudden, their carriage is attacked by bandits. Except it's just one bandit, and it's Snow White. Snow White, after having almost been killed by Graham the Huntsman, she escaped to the woods. She hooked up with all the dwarves and everything, but instead of just like keeping house like in the Disney film, she has fully become a bandit, and she is raising a sort of resistance fighter movement. They live in the woods. They're essentially, like, she's essentially Robin Hood. So she stops the carriage, she breaks in, she ends up sword fighting David, and she's got a hood up, and they do the, the annoying reveal of like, oh, she takes the hood down, and it's like, wait, this swordsman is actually a woman? And she uses his sexist befuddlement to like punch him in the face and steal this beautiful engagement ring that he was going to give to Caroline. And she runs off into the woods, and he goes chasing her, and he gets caught in a net because she has a net, because she's great. They have some flirty banter. She ends up letting him go. There's a whole thing. They end up falling in love. But, they're clearly on opposite sides of things because he's engaged to someone else, and she's a bandit that lives in the woods. Anyway, back in Storybrooke, David has woken up from his coma. Snow White and he are kind of falling in love, and then Caroline shows up. And Regina says she found Caroline in Boston. She's David's wife, And so he has to get back together with her, and him and Snow can't be together. And David is going to be like, well, Caroline, I don't remember you, and I'm in love with this lady now. But then Regina somehow gives him his curse memories. So he remembers being married to Caroline, and they lived together in Boston or something. Again, I don't know where Caroline's been all this time. Because she can't have been in Boston, because she was caught up in the curse, and the curse, everyone is in Storybrooke. So I don't know where she was, but she's here now, and she's causing trouble. Anyway, Snow and David start having an affair. Like, fully having an affair behind Caroline's back, and it's very dramatic, very soap opera-y, and it kind of makes them both look like terrible people. Now, within the narrative of the first season, it's supposed to be justified because they are true loves, and this is part of the curse that they're being separated, so there is some justification to them, you know, pursuing those feelings for each other. However, I think it excellently sets up how selfish both of these characters are. And I'm not saying necessarily like falling in love with someone when you're married to someone else, or even cheating necessarily like makes you a terrible person. I don't think that. I think there are grey areas to that in real life. But in this show specifically, these two are very selfish. They will do anything to be together, which I can understand, but they go so far as to like that being the detriment to everything else. Like, they will be together even if it kills everybody. Like, they're selfish people. And you can't blame David as much because David really doesn't have a personality. David's just in love with Snow, and that's his whole thing. He doesn't do anything else. Snow, however, Snow is selfish, and I think Regina had a point. Like, she was a child when all that went down, and I do not blame Snow for breaking her promise to Regina and getting Daniel killed. That was on Cora. Cora manipulated a child. She also manipulated her own daughter. She murdered a dude. She's murdered a lot of people. So I don't hold Snow accountable for that, even though Regina does. But I do hold Snow accountable for a lot of other things she's done. And the narrative, like the show, forgives Snow for a lot of things. It doesn't forgive her for Daniel, weirdly. That's the one thing that she's held accountable for within the narrative of the show. And I don't think that's fair because I don't think that was her fault. But there are many other things she does that are fully her fault that she's not held accountable for. And we're going to talk about those later, but like, yeah, I have issues with Snow. Getting back to the finale, just bear in mind, this affair is also going on. I'm just eating a cracker. I'm really hungry. I've been talking for over an hour now, but we're so nearly done with series 1. Emma is leaving town because Henry is refusing to speak to her because she lied about believing him when he said magic was real. Regina has convinced her to leave, that it's best for Henry, and she's given her some apple turnovers to take with her on her trip back to Boston. Henry goes to say goodbye to her, and he sees these apple turnovers, and he's like, what the hell are those? And Emma's like, yeah, your mom made them for me. And he's like, no, they're evil. And Emma's like, listen, you need to stop this. Your mother's not an evil witch. I'm going to prove it to you by eating this. And Henry like slaps it out of her hand, and he's like, no, and he eats it himself and immediately falls into a coma because he is under the sleeping curse that Regina intended for Emma. So obviously, Emma's freaking out. Henry ends up in the hospital. He's in a coma. No one can figure out what's wrong with him. No one can wake him up. Regina is devastated. So now Emma believes in curses, but it's too late because Henry's under one. She's trying to find a magical solution to save him. She goes to August. This is when she finds that August has fully turned to wood, and she can see that he's wood now, and she freaks out, and she's like, oh my god, Pinocchio. I made out with Pinocchio, because they've kissed at this point. Emma is trying to solve this. She can't figure it out. It gets to the end of the episode. She goes to Henry's room, and she's like in tears, and she's like, Henry, I'm so sorry. I believe you now. I should have believed you from the beginning. I don't know what to do. I love you. I wish you'd wake up. I don't know what to do. She kisses him on the forehead, and that's true love's kiss. And it not only wakes Henry up, it breaks the entire curse, because true love's kiss can break any curse. We know this. So suddenly this like wave of magic rushes through the town, and everybody gets their memories back. All in one foul swoop, everyone gets their memories back. We see Snow and David out in the street. They had broken up at this point, and suddenly they have their memories back, and they see each other in the middle of the main street, and they just run to each other and embrace, and it's really sweet. And then we see I did not mention Jefferson. Oh my god, okay. Alright, pause for a second. Jefferson, right? Jefferson. This is a top hat. So, at some point towards the end of season 1, Emma and Snow get kidnapped by a crazy man called Jefferson, played by Sebastian Stan. Now, at this point in his career, Sebastian Stan was pretty successful. Like, he'd done a lot of TV stuff, he'd done Broadway shows, but he had not yet been cast as Bucky Barnes. That happened, I believe, either like at the very end of season 1 or in the hiatus between season 1 and season 2. Which is why Jefferson very quickly gets added to the missing characters list. When we first meet Jefferson, he is kidnapping Snow White and Emma. The reason he's done this is that Jefferson, for some reason, I can't remember why, he has kept his memories throughout this whole thing. He's lived in this town for 28 years with his original memories. And this is especially tragic for him because he has a daughter, and this daughter does have cursed memories, and she has cursed parents. Now, slight side note, that offers up a lot of confusion, especially when we get into season 2, because a lot of season 2 is the characters trying to find a way to deal with having their original Enchanted Forest memories, but also like their cursed memories in their head, and like, what are the relationships I've built with people during the curse, but like, what are my original relationships? And that kind of mindfuck is something that is delved into a little bit in season 2. I think they should have done more with it, but I especially think they should have done more with it when it comes to the kids, because we establish with Jefferson that like his daughter is being raised by different people. She goes to school with Henry. She thinks they're her parents. Those people think she is their daughter. They have memories of like being a family. When the curse breaks, she remembers that Jefferson is her real father, but what happens to those cursed parents? Also, there's enough kids in this town to like fill the school. So are all of those kids separated from, like, has Regina just mixed and matched all these families? What are the emotional repercussions of suddenly waking up one day and getting all your original memories back, and like your parents that you live with are not your real parents? Your real parents are over here, but maybe they're raising like a different child, and like how do you put all that together in your head? I don't know, and it's never explored. Anyway, Jefferson has been trying to break this curse for years and get back to the Enchanted Forest. His plan is to just get out of here, get back to the Enchanted Forest, basically like kidnap his daughter from her curse life and take her back to the Enchanted Forest. And to do that, he's been making hats, because Jefferson is the Mad Hatter. We see in flashbacks, Jefferson has a magic hat that he can travel to other realms in, because there are other realms. It's not just the Enchanted Forest, there's also like Agrabah, for instance, there's our world, there's Neverland, there's, you know, lots of other magical places. These are all essentially different universes, so this is a multiverse show. Like, there are multiple universes, and we can travel between them using magic. The easiest way to do that is through a magic hat. So because of the curse, Jefferson lost his magic hat. He's trying to create a new one, but none of them work because there's no magic in this universe created by the curse. The only person that has magic is Regina, and because she took magic with her, but only for her personal use, like a little bit of magic. She has it stored in a vault, in a crypt, in the cemetery. That's a separate thing. So Jefferson realizes that Emma is the one that can break the curse. So he kidnaps her to try and convince her that magic is real, and he thinks that if she is the one to use one of his hats, she will be able to activate the hat, and so he can like get away with his kid. But it doesn't work. Emma just thinks he's a crazy person. At this point, she's the sheriff. So her and Snow escape. I think they try to arrest him, but he runs away or something. When the curse breaks, we see him. He's been like lurking outside the school, watching his daughter because he's concerned about her, but obviously he can't talk to her. So he is there, the curse breaks, the daughter turns around, she sees him, she goes, "Oh my god, Daddy!" And they're reunited, and it's very sweet. and then he's never seen again. Now, Jefferson is a big one to have on this missing characters list because fundamentally, Jefferson is a very important character within the universe. He is set up that, like, Jefferson is going to be very connected to everything going forward. He is connected to a lot of different characters in different ways, but because they couldn't get Sebastian Stan back, because he was busy being Bucky Barnes, Jefferson is very noticeably absent, which is extra weird because his hat is here a lot of the time. So when people need to travel places, they just go, oh, we'll get Jefferson's hat. But it's never mentioned, well, where is Jefferson? Why isn't he with his hat? Like, what? Nobody cares that Jefferson is gone. They only care about his hat. And that's sad, because I love Jefferson. So I think that's it. That is the end of Series 1. We end with the curse has broken, everyone gets their memories back, but they're not back in the Enchanted Forest. They're still in our world. They're still in Storybrooke, which is not what anyone expected to happen. I don't think it's what Regina expected to happen either. So we're still in Storybrooke. We're still dealing with this, but the curse is broken. Everyone has their memories back. Regina is defeated. And we never talked about Belle. Oh my god, this video is never going to end because I keep remembering things. Right, so I put Belle on the board during the pilot. She does not show up in the pilot, but we get an episode sort of mid-season, I think around the same time that we get the Regina backstory, we get part of Rumpelstiltskin's backstory. Now, at this point, Rumpelstiltskin is already the Dark One. I should write the Dark One. It's not super relevant yet, but it's going to become annoyingly relevant later. So we see Belle. Belle is played by the same actor who plays Claire in Lost, whose name I can never remember, but I really like her. Belle lives in a kingdom where everyone has Australian accents. And by everyone, I basically just mean her and her dad, the king. They have Australian accents, no one else is Australian, it's never explained. Belle's kingdom is being attacked by giants or ogres. Giant ogres. They're being attacked anyway. And so Belle's father, the king, makes a deal with Rumpelstiltskin that he will give Rumpelstiltskin Belle. She's not a child at this point. She's like a fully grown adult woman. He will give Rumpelstiltskin Belle in order to protect the kingdom from the giant ogres. Belle, very understandably, is upset about this. She doesn't want to go live with Rumpelstiltskin. She's also pissed off with her dad. So Rumpelstiltskin takes Belle to his castle and he forces her to be his cleaning lady. And initially, she's real pissed off about this and she tries to escape, but she can't escape. And also, if she does escape, then Rumpelstiltskin will go back on the deal and let her kingdom and all of her people be destroyed by the giant ogres. The longer Belle lives there, the more she starts to see that actually Rumpelstiltskin isn't entirely evil. Like, sometimes he does nice things for people and helps them out. And he always pretends like, no, I'm evil, I'm doing it for my evil plans. But she starts to suspect otherwise. Now, we could consider this a Stockholm Syndrome, but I think it's just a symptom of Belle being like an absurdly good person. Belle is always going to see the best in literally everyone. Everyone she meets, she sees the best in them. And very often, that is not warranted. But anyway, things progress how you would expect them to. They start to fall in love, and Belle is out, she's like hanging the washing up on the line one day, and this woman comes along. I cannot for the life of me remember if it was Regina or Cora. I think it was Cora. It could have been someone else though, I genuinely don't remember who it was, but I think it was probably Cora. So Cora shows up, right? And she's just this mysterious woman who's passing by, and she says to Belle, she's like, oh my goodness, you're that poor princess that's the captive of that evil Rumpelstiltskin. And Belle says, oh, he's not actually evil, he's quite nice, we actually get along really well. And Cora goes, wait, are you in love with him? And Belle's like, oh, I don't know, maybe. And Cora tells her, you know that Rumpelstiltskin's under a curse, right? Like, he's only evil and he only looks like that weird scaly beast creature, because he got put under a curse. And you know what breaks curses? It's true love's kiss. And Belle's like, oh my goodness, if I kiss him, is he gonna, is the spell gonna work? Oh my goodness. So she goes back, right? and she kisses Rumpelstiltskin. And Rumpelstiltskin's like, oh my goodness, Belle returns my affection, she loves me. And they're kissing, and Belle kind of pulls away, and she's like, oh my god, it's working. And Rumpel freaks out. He thinks the only reason she is kissing him is not because she's in love with him, which doesn't make sense, but Rumpelstiltskin, we're gonna learn, has severe issues. This man has got an inferiority complex a mile wide, which is part of why he's so evil. You see, Rumpel thinks that Belle is only pretending to love him and to kiss him because she wants to break the curse that's on him. And that curse is the thing that like makes him look like a beast, but it's also the thing that gives him his magic powers. So he thinks that she is trying to take his power away from him so that she can escape and he will be powerless. That doesn't make any sense. If she did not truly love him, True Love's kiss would not break the spell. So like, Rumpel knows this, but his issues are like telling him that's the only reason anyone would ever want to kiss him. So he gets angry with Belle, he throws her out of the castle. He's like, never come back. So back in Storybrooke, in the present day, we see that Rumpel is angsting about this. This is his single, like, one of his greatest regrets, is rejecting Belle and sending her away and denying himself the prospect of true love, because he was too frightened to lose his powers. So now that he has his memories back within the curse, he is covertly trying to find Belle, because he thinks she must be somewhere in the town and Regina must be hiding her, which she is. Belle is locked up in the creepy psych ward of the hospital that is presided over by Nurse Ratched. Why is Nurse Ratched here? She is not a fairy tale character. You can't just add in characters from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest into your stupid fucking fairy tale show. It doesn't make any logical sense and it infuriates me. Belle is in the psych ward. Rumpelstiltskin ends up finding her, breaking her out, but she is, I think, amnesiac as well. A lot of people end up with amnesia. So Rumpelstiltskin breaks her out. He's like trying to be nice to her, and he is trying to get amnesiac Belle to fall in love with him, because if she can fall in love with him, then they can have True Love's kiss, and if they have True Love's kiss, then she will get her memories back. So he is trying to like make her fall in love with him, and it's sort of working a little bit, but then Regina like finds out what's going on. So Regina gives Belle her curse memories, and Curse Belle is called Lacey, and Lacey's a bad girl. Lacey like likes to do bad things, and she's all edgy, and she drinks a lot, and she likes bad guys. And like Rumpel has been trying to be a better person in order to win Belle's heart, but when she's Lacey, he realizes that Lacey is really attracted to like violence and crime. So he starts doing violence and crime, and they're like sort of living happily ever after doing violence and crime together. It's an odd choice for the show to do. Anyway, we can get rid of this question mark because Belle has been found. She's here. Finally, I think that is everything from series 1 of Once Upon a Time. I believe, well, everything important anyway. A lot of other things happen that are sort of irrelevant. Like, at one point Henry gets trapped in the abandoned mine shaft with therapist Jiminy Cricket, and all the minor dwarves have to dig them out, and that's how the mine shaft gets reopened and they start mining again. And that's like a whole episode. But ultimately, season 1 ends with Emma giving Henry True Love's kiss on the forehead and breaking the curse, and everyone now remembers who they were. And that's the end of season 1. Season 1 and season 2 are really like a complete story together. After that, actually, let me demonstrate something, right? Season 1, we get a full complete arc of the full season. Season 2, we get the same, but these two, like, very much linked. These two go together sort of hand in hand. We get to season 3, and we start doing half seasons. So like A and B. These do not necessarily tie to each other narratively, and we often find going forward that actually, like, say 4B is sort of finishing off the arc of like 3A or something. Like there are these big narrative gaps where like things get forgotten and then brought back, and it becomes really irritating. So we get that for 5 and 6 as well. And then series 7 we're going to put over here. 7 is one arc all the way through. I think it's shorter. I'm pretty sure it's only like 13 episodes, whereas all of these are more like, say, 22. And season 7 is very different. Essentially, season 7 should have been a spin-off, because essentially it is a spin-off. It's the Henry spin-off, where Henry's an adult. I'm gonna write down adult Henry. The fact that this isn't a spin-off and they made it season 7, I think is a detriment to the show. It could have been better if they had just let it be its own thing, but they didn't, and that's why it's so bad. Also, unrelated, but we do have an actual spin-off, which is Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. Controversially, I actually quite liked this. It was even lower budget than regular Once Upon a Time, so it looked awful. It was really, really cheaply made. But I enjoyed the characters. The story was kind of hit and miss, but I really, really liked the characters. And I think not many people watched it, but the people who did watch it sort of tend to be on the same page. They really enjoy the characters. So later on, and I cannot remember where, I feel like this happened between 3 and 4. And so we get, yeah, it must have been, because a certain character from Wonderland turns up in Storybrooke in season 4. It's never explained how he got there. They introduce him, and then he becomes, and I'm gonna, you know what, we're so far ahead of ourselves, but I'm gonna add him to the board so I don't forget about him later. It's so frustrating, because he gets a really good ending to his character in Wonderland, then they bring him to Storybrooke, basically undoing his happy ending, and then they don't even do anything with him, they just abandon him, and then he ends up in the missing characters section, and it's really frustrating. So, yeah. I'm gonna go eat something, and then we're gonna try and tackle season 2. Hang on, I need a different pen. Okay, during the time I was having lunch, it got very dark outside, so the lighting is gonna be even worse. Also, it's raining, and I don't know if you know this, but I basically live in a shack, so it's gonna be really loud. We're just gonna have to deal with it, alright? I have switched to a green pen to signify series 2. Also, immediately I have to make some corrections. So first off, when I was talking about doing series 1 and series 2 together because like they kind of work as a complete narrative, I'm pretty sure I was actually wrong, because I think, after thinking about it for a minute, I think things I was remembering as being in season 2 actually happen in 3A. So that would mean that, oh, this green marker does not work. But that would mean that the actual kind of complete first story, and really the only like complete story in the whole show, is actually series 1, 2, and then the first half of series 3. That goes from like the first curse right up until the second curse, which is cast in the finale of 3A. Now, again, I could be wrong because I'm doing all of this from memory. I don't know. So I'm going to have to talk about 2 and 3A now. And we're just going to have to bear in mind that I'm not sure which is which. Another correction is a character I completely failed to mention. I am going to have to go back to the black marker for this. So, there is a character on this show played by John Carlos Esposito. I cannot remember the character's name. He's the magic mirror. He's Regina's magic mirror. And his tragic backstory is that he was a genie from Agrabah. He ends up in the service of the king, who is Snow White's dad, married to Regina. He falls in love with her. She ends up manipulating him, telling him that like she's unhappy with her husband and she wants to run away with the genie, and so he ends up giving her wishes so that she can kill the king so that her and the magic mirror can be together. But then it turns out she didn't love him at all, and he uses the last of his magic to turn himself into a mirror so that he can always look at her. I feel like that's an odd choice, but you know, whatever. So within Storybrooke, in the curse, he's just some dude. Glass! That's it, Mr. Glass! Mr. Glass. So Mr. Glass is Regina's lackey. I think she makes him run for sheriff against Emma at one point, but he loses. And he hangs around, and I think he's in season 2, and I don't think we see him after that because, again, Giancarlo Esposito, he's too busy. They can't just have him hanging around being a mirror all the time. But I'm gonna write down Mr. Glass Mirror. Okay, so Green is season 2, and we're gonna get into it. So we start off pretty much where we ended, which is, you know, everyone's coming to terms with the fact that they've got their memories back, but they're not back in the Enchanted Forest. They are still stuck in our world without magic. The fact that the curse is broken also means that the barrier around the town has broken down. I think I didn't talk about this in season 1, but basically we find out during season 1, and it's kind of subtly implied at first, that like people cannot leave the town. When Emma tries to leave the town, she tries a couple of times, things keep happening to make her stay. And it turns out that there's actually a magical barrier around the town, so you physically cannot leave. Henry's able to get out, but only so he can get Emma. They can come back in. August can come in because he's a little wooden boy. Speaking of August, at the beginning of this season, he reunites with Geppetto, his father, and Geppetto's like, "Were you a good boy, Pinocchio?" And August's like, "No, not really, I'm turning back into wood." So they take him to the nuns, who, these fucking nuns, right? Because actually, let's sidebar for a second, right? If you're a nun, that implies that, you know, you're married to Jesus. That's what being a nun is. You marry God and you devote your life to Jesus and the big G upstairs. So to have all these memories of like becoming a nun and devoting your life to that, and then suddenly find out you're actually a mythical fairy tale creature, would that not cause you to have a complete existential crisis? We do see some mythical gods, like we meet Hades in Hades down here. I'm pretty sure it's 6A where we meet Hades. So we do know that there are deities, but Christian God is not one of them. So why are these nuns not having more of an issue? Also, why are they still nuns? If I was a nun and then I suddenly found out that I was actually a fairy, I would go full into being a fairy. Like, that's just more fun. I can't remember how, but the nuns turn August not only back human, but into a little boy. Which is really, again, if we're going to get into an existential kind of dread thing, August remembers being an adult man. And he was quite a libertine. Like, he was fucking his way around the world. And now he's like a 10-year-old boy who has to go to school, and, you know, also it's weird for Emma because Emma and August had a little thing going. They kissed a few times, and now suddenly the man that Emma was potentially going to start maybe some sort of relationship with is a 10-year-old boy. It's really unsettling. So thankfully we don't have to deal with that for too long, because August goes to the missing characters section and we do not see him again. So as I was saying before I got distracted, the barrier around the town has now been removed, which means people outside can now get in, which they didn't used to be able to do before. One lady turns up and she's like, "Hey, I'm just here as a tourist," and everyone's really suspicious of her because they've like never had anyone in the town before, and also everyone's, you know, coming to grips with the fact that they're fairy tale creatures, and having an outsider here is, you know, very unsettling for everyone. It turns out this girl, whose name I cannot remember, she is working for Cora, because Cora is in the Enchanted Forest. She was not caught up in the curse because she figured out what Regina was doing while she was preparing for the curse, and Cora was like, "I'm not getting fucking cursed by my own daughter." So she did like a counter spell that enclosed like a small section of the Enchanted Forest, so anyone that happened to be in that area got basically put in stasis in a little bubble and protected, but they have been living the last 28 years. They've just been like in a confined space waiting for the curse to be broken. So Cora is in the Enchanted Forest and she is waiting for the curse to be broken so she can come to Storybrooke and fuck stuff up. With Cora, and I am very excited to write down this character, with Cora is Killian Jones. He's a sexy pirate, he's evil, he's working with Cora because Cora needs him because Captain Hook has a magic ship that can travel between realms. That's how he gets from the Enchanted Forest to Neverland and back again. Cora needs the ship to get to Storybrooke, and Killian needs Cora to get him to Storybrooke because Cora has told him that Rumpelstiltskin is there. Killian wants to kill Rumpelstiltskin because in addition to being Rumpelstiltskin, Mr. Gold, the Dark One, he is also the crocodile. And he is the person that cut off Hook's hand, and Hook wants revenge, or so we think. Actually, his reasons for revenge go a little bit deeper than that, but we're going to get into that in a second. They are here to terrorize the town, and the town really needs some saving. But where's Emma? Not here, because Emma and Snow, do they take Henry? No. Emma and Snow have gone to the Enchanted Forest. I'm pretty sure they take Jefferson's hat to the Enchanted Forest. So these two are having mother-daughter adventures. Now that Snow remembers that Emma is her daughter, she is trying to go full-on mother mode. She obviously is trying to make up for lost time with Emma and be a parent to her, and Emma is not here for it, alright? Emma grew up an orphan. Emma has been alone and miserable and traumatized for 28 years, and suddenly this person that she thought of as her friend is now revealed to be her mother, and they're basically the same age, and it's just very upsetting for her. So she is not up for getting mothered by Snow right now. I cannot for the life of me remember why they have to go to the Enchanted Forest. Maybe they get sent there by accident. That might be it. They might get sent there by accident, by magic or something. Anyway, they're going around the Enchanted Forest. They run into Jack and Jill, who are like giant killers, but then it turns out actually they're the evil ones and the giant's really nice, and they make friends with the giant. The giant is played by the guy who played Hurley in Lost. So Hurley's here. I'm going to write down Hurley. He's not a massive part of the plot, and he does end up over here in Missing Characters eventually, but he's really sweet. I like him. Actually, I think I'm wrong. I don't think Cora and Killian are in Storybrooke yet, because I think they run into Emma and Snow in the Enchanted Forest, and they make a deal to bring them back to Storybrooke, and then they go with them and start fucking shit up. So I'm not sure at what point that happens. All I know is that Emma and Killian and Snow climb up a beanstalk to steal some magic beans, because the magic beans can grow the magic beanstalk that lets you travel between worlds. So they need those beans to open a portal for Killian's ship to go through so they can get back to Storybrooke. It's very convoluted. While they're up the beanstalk, Emma and Killian flirt a lot. I'm gonna put in lots of flirting. Snow obviously does not approve because this is an evil pirate and that's her daughter and she doesn't like it. Emma and Snow make friends with Hurley Giant and he ends up helping them out, and I think they tie up Killian up there and they leave him behind and they're like, haha, you're evil, to get eaten by giants. But he doesn't, he escapes and he's fine. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, back in Storybrooke, there's a lot of shenanigans going on. Emma has made David her deputy sheriff while she's gone. He does not have the skills for this. He is ending up kind of being the leader of the town, because even though Regina is still mayor, everybody hates her. Nobody's listening to her, and so she stops doing her job, and then things start going wrong in the town because nobody's running it. So David is trying to run the town. He's not very good at it. Him and Henry, however, are bonding. They're doing grandfather and grandson activities. He's teaching Henry to sword fight. It's sweet. At some point during all of this, we get Killian Jones's tragic backstory. So Killian, he's a pirate, right? He's a bit of a scoundrel, he's morally ambiguous, but he's not a bad dude. And this gets tied into Rumpelstiltskin's backstory, because we see Rumpelstiltskin before he was the crocodile, before he was the Dark One, he's just Rumpelstiltskin, and he's some pathetic dude. He lives in this little village, everybody hates him because he is like a war deserter, or I think he deliberately injured himself so he wouldn't have to fight in a war, which frankly I think is perfectly logical, good for him. It's one of the few actions he's done that I agree with, because we find out later he deliberately did this because he was told a prophecy that he would die in war and his son would be left all alone, and he wanted to make sure he was around to take care of his son, so he deliberately injured himself and was okay with like being shamed for the rest of his life as a deserter because it meant he got to stay and protect his son. We're gonna get onto his son in a little while. Anyway, Rumpelstiltskin, pathetic loser, married to a beautiful woman called Mila. Mila absolutely hates Rumpel for being a coward. One night, she goes out drinking, she leaves Rumpel and their child home alone, and she never comes back. And so obviously, Rumpel is concerned, and he goes looking for her. And he goes to the bar and he finds out that she has been kidnapped by Captain Hook. Oh, he's not Captain Hook yet, he's Captain Jones, because he still has two hands. So she has been kidnapped by this pirate. And Rumpel's a coward, he's terrified, but you know, this is his wife and he has to protect her. So he goes to the docks to try and get her back from these pirates. But when he gets there, it turns out she has not been kidnapped at all. Mila is there because her and Killian have fallen in love. And she wants to be there, she hates Rumpel, she doesn't really care for her child either, so she's just like, I'm leaving them behind and I'm going off with the sexy pirate. Again, a perfectly logical choice. I'm on Mila's side here. Rumpelstiltskin challenges Killian to a duel, even though he's a coward and he's clearly not going to be good at fighting. I can't remember how exactly, but he ends up cutting off Killian's hand, and Mila's all upset about it. Is this when Mila dies? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Rumpel accidentally kills Mila here. And he cuts off Killian's hand, and then he runs away. Oh, no, I'm immediately wrong. Okay. So, yeah, it's as I said, initially, pathetic Rumpel goes to get Mila back, but it turns out she doesn't want to come back. She hasn't been kidnapped. She's just deliberately run away with Killian. So, later on, once Rumpelstiltskin has become the Dark One, he had to do this whole thing and murder a dude and whatever. He becomes the Dark One. We'll get into that later. Rumpelstiltskin, as the Dark One, now goes to hunt down Killian and Mila. And he challenges Killian to a duel with his magic, and he ends up killing Mila and cutting off Killian's hand, and then he fucks off. So, ever since that day, when the Dark One, that Killian refers to as the crocodile, which is stupid, ever since that day, newly christened Captain Hook has been hunting down Rumpelstiltskin because that is the man that killed his great love, Mila, and also cut off his hand. So Cora and Killian are fucking shit up. That lady that showed up is being sinister somehow. I think we might find out that she's Wendy. Is she Wendy? I'm gonna write down Wendy, but I'm not sure if I'm right. See, this is where I get confused, because a lot of things that happen, like, in Season 2 are just setting up 3A, but 3A really feels like it should be Season 2. Like, this divide shouldn't have happened, because I think there's a lot in Season 2 that is just unnecessary filler, and if they'd taken that out and then put the 3A plot into Season 2, it would be really strong. But as it is, I mean, clearly it's forgettable, because I don't remember what happens. So we're going to get rid of the green, and we're going to skip ahead to the beginning of 3A. Because I don't remember anything else. I think at the end, oh, I do. So the girl who is maybe Wendy and some other people are like trying to destroy magic or something. And they end up kidnapping Henry. And they take him to Neverland. And I'm pretty sure that's the cliffhanger of Season 2. Henry is kidnapped. So, season 3. The opening of season 3 is like this great mystery, right? Because suddenly we're in New York City and we see this guy coming home to his apartment, and he picks up his post, and in the post is a postcard with a mysterious message, and it just says, "Curse broken." And then we cut away, and it's like, who is this dude? Why does he know about the curse? What's going on? This dude is Neil. This is another character I hate, but he's interesting, so I don't mind talking about him. So, Neil is the son of Rumpelstiltskin. He is the child that Mila abandoned when she ran off with Killian. Neil is also one of the Lost Boys because he hated Rumpel, and he hated when Rumpel became the Dark One because of his magic. He ran away to Neverland when he was young. From Neverland, he ended up getting to our world and meeting Wendy. They became friends, and Wendy is the one that sent him the postcard when the curse broke, because Neil has been trying to get to Storybrooke for years, because Neil is Henry's father and Emma's ex. So this is convoluted as fuck. We find this out in bits and pieces over the course of like several flashbacks. Like, I summed this up in, what, a minute? This is a lot of episodes, this is a lot of screen time, and the timeline gets very confusing. It was already like a little bit muddled, but from here on out, the timeline of the show gets so convoluted and like incomprehensible at times. Anyway, we get a flashback episode called Tallahassee about how Emma and Neil met. So Emma at this point was like 16, 17. Let's say 17 to be generous to our boy Neil. So Emma is 17 and she has run away from foster care. She is living on her own and basically like robbing and scamming people in order to survive. She meets an older man called Neil. It is important to remember the age gap here. Now, to be fair to Neil, he spent a long time in Neverland, not aging and like stuck in a state of arrested development as a child. But he gets to our world, what, the 1920s? He must hop forward and back for a while. Oh, because also, like, Neil is friends with Killian Jones. He's a pirate with him for a while, which makes it really awkward because Killian is now trying to go out with Emma, who, again, is the mother of Neil's kid. But even if we're really generous and say that Neil is like, say, I don't know, 23. Let's say 23 when he meets Emma. I feel like he can't, like, possibly be any younger than that, given all that's gone on. So we'll say he's 23. Emma's 17. At this point in his life, Neil is also kind of scamming and doing things. They meet up, they fall in love, they start pulling scams together, and it turns out they stole Emma's yellow beetle together. This is actually how they meet. They both try to steal the same car. So this all happens in the episode Tallahassee. They meet because of stealing the car, they fall in love, they pull scams together. They decide they want to go straight. They're gonna do one last score so that they have enough money to run away together and like set up a proper life. And Emma randomly puts her finger on the map and picks the town Tallahassee. The Watch's scheme goes wrong. Emma gets arrested. This is what ends her up in jail. And Neil, she never sees again. She thinks he's abandoned her to let her take the rap, which he has. But unbeknownst to Emma, the reason Neil has done this is because someone has turned up, and I cannot for the life of me remember who, but someone has turned up, possibly Wendy, possibly, oh no, it's August, right? So he's also connected to August. August, even though he abandoned her as a child, and we can't really hold him too accountable because he was like 8, but he's felt guilty about that, so he has kind of been keeping an eye on Emma. And he knows that Emma is destined to break this curse, right? So when August sees Emma getting into all this trouble with Neil, he's like, this is not good. And he learns that Neil is also from the Enchanted Forest and he kind of knows about magic. So he goes to Neil and he's like, hey, Emma has a destiny and you need to abandon her right now so she can fulfill her destiny. And Neil's like, I don't want to do that, that's stupid. But August convinces him to abandon Emma, so he does. So he allows Emma to take the rap for all of their crimes and to go to jail. And when Emma is in jail, she finds out she's pregnant. Again, she is like 17, 18 at the very oldest. It's actually August. I was misremembering. It is not Wendy who sends the postcard to Neil. It's August, because August promises Neil in this flashback that as soon as the curse is broken, he can be with Emma again, and August will let him know when the curse is broken. So Neil, once he gets this postcard, immediately goes to Storybrooke to find Emma, because this stupid fucking man thinks he can just abandon her and let her go to jail, and then she'll just, like, once he explains, she'll just be cool with it, and it'll all be fine and they can get back together. Because he's a fucking moron. In present day, in Storybrooke, Henry's just been kidnapped. Emma and Regina are like, fuck, we need to go save him. Neil shows up and he's like, hey, Emma, remember me? I'm in love with you. And she's like, I don't have time for you right now. My kid has been kidnapped. And at some point, Neil figures out that Henry is his child, and he's like, I need to go save my son. And she's like, fuck you, you abandoned us. Emma and Regina want to go to Neverland to go save Henry. For some reason, I can't remember, Regina ends up not being able to go. So Emma and Killian and David go together, and Neil goes with them, and they take Killian's ship to go to Neverland to go save Henry. Because at this point, Killian has been betrayed by Cora, and he's decided not to kill Rumpelstiltskin, so he's still morally ambiguous, but he's kind of on the side of good. Partially for convenience sake for him, but also because he really fancies Emma, and he wants to go out with Emma, and she's one of the good guys, so he's like, I'll just be a good guy as well. That seems logical. So while they are in Neverland, Regina and Snow are running the town, and they are having some issues. Also, does Rumpelstiltskin, I think, goes with them to Neverland, because he also has tragic backstory related to Neverland. Because there's another twist, right? So it turns out, this is one of the stupidest things they do, and I honestly think this plot is stupider than the dwarves coming out of eggs. Rumpelstiltskin is secretly the son of Peter Pan. Now you might be wondering, how? Peter Pan's a little boy. Well, it turns out that Rumpelstiltskin's dad was like a con artist, right? And he was trying to escape like the law or something. So him and Rumpel ran away and they ended up in Neverland. And I think Peter Pan was like, Rumpel's dad was corrupted by because he was already evil, and he was corrupted by the spirit of Neverland, which turned him young and gave him supreme powers. And because he hated his son, because everyone hates Rumpel even when he's a tiny child, he kicks Rumpel out of Neverland and bans him. So Rumpelstiltskin is just left all alone and orphaned. So Rumpelstiltskin goes with them to Neverland, and he tells them it's because now that he knows Henry's his grandson, he cares about saving him, but actually it's because he wants to defeat his evil dad, Peter Pan. It turns out Peter Pan is the one that had Henry kidnapped. He does not know that Henry is his great-grandson, because that's where we're at. He's because of this, he's Henry's great-grandfather. He doesn't know this. All that he does know is that Henry has the heart of the truest believer. I should really have a glossary of bullshit going on. Peter Pan needs the heart of the truest believer, who is Henry, because he believed all along. He has the power of belief. Whether or not this ties into his author powers that have not been retconned into the show yet, we don't know. Peter Pan needs the heart of the truest believer in order to do something. Some sort of magic something. And part of it ties into the second curse. So basically, this curse, Regina's curse, that it turns out actually Regina did not create this curse herself. She actually got it from Rumpelstiltskin. He created the curse because he wanted the curse to go to a land without magic, because Neil wanted to go to a land without magic, and that's how he ended up in Neverland. And so Rumpel was trying to get back to him, so he created a curse to go to a land without magic, but he never used it because he was too much of a coward to give up his powers, which is what he would have had to do in order to go to a land without magic. So he ended up trading the curse to Regina, and then she used it, and they all ended up in the land without magic anyway. So I think Peter Pan wants to enact this curse again. Or he's doing something else. I'm not clear as to why. All I know is that there's going to be a second curse. While Emma and David and Killian and Neil are trekking around the jungle of Neverland, trying to find Henry, at this point I'm pretty sure Rumpel has abandoned them and fucked off somewhere. But while they're having adventures, Emma and Killian are getting kind of close. They're getting kind of flirty. It's kind of interesting, but it's very awkward because Neil is also here. And Neil is trying to get back with Emma. But Emma just can't trust him. Because how could she? Because he fucked her over supremely. Also, he shouldn't have been with her in the first place. Because she was a child. And I know he was young as well and he'd been through trauma. But she was a child. He should not have been dating her. I'm not okay with this man. Anyway, they manage to defeat Peter Pan. I'm pretty sure Rumpel murders him because Rumpel loves to murder people. They all get on Killian's boat, the Jolly Roger, and they fly back to Storybrooke. And you think, oh yay, the day is saved. But while they were away, shit was going down. Maybe it's Cora. Is it Cora that does the second curse? I think let's say it's Cora, because I'm not clear. So Cora's still around and she's still fucking shit up. They arrive back, everybody celebrates, but then it's oh no, there's a curse coming. And at this point, it's too late to do anything about it. It cannot be stopped. The only thing they can do is to make sure that Emma and Henry escape. Because the only people that can escape this curse are people who were not born in a magical realm. Now, I don't know why that applies to Emma, because Emma was born in the Enchanted Forest. But Emma's able to escape, and Henry is able to escape with her. So it's really sad. Everyone comes to the very border of the town where the cursed border is going to be, right? And Emma's packed up her yellow beetle, and everybody's there, Regina's there, and they say this tearful goodbye because everyone is about to lose their memories, and so are Emma and Henry, because Regina has not been able to stop the curse, but she's been able to alter it so that she can make Emma and Henry believe that Emma never gave Henry up. Oh, I forgot to mention the fucking saddest part of this season, right? It must be the season 3 premiere, which doesn't make sense because I thought the Neil postcard was in the season 3 premiere, but maybe that's the finale of season 2. I can't remember exactly which. But I'm pretty sure that the first scene that we see in season 3 is Emma giving birth. And it is fucking harrowing. It's a horrible scene. Emma is giving birth in jail. She is handcuffed to the gurney that she is giving birth on. And so Emma has magic, right? We think she's just able to break a curse, but we find out in season 2 that actually she has magical abilities, and she's technically a witch, but she doesn't know how to control her powers because she's never had them before. But we see in this scene that while Emma's giving birth, the lights are flickering and her magic is kind of fucking shit up because she's in such pain and such turmoil that her latent magic ability is going out and affecting things. So in the first episode of series 3, we see the scene as it really was. She gives birth, and the doctor asks her, does she want to hold the baby? And she's so broken up, and she just says, no, I can't, because she knows that if she holds that baby, she will never be able to give him up, and she is convinced that the right thing for Henry is to give him up. So in the mid-season finale, which is the end of 3A, the end of the Neverland arc, everyone comes to the border of the town to say goodbye. Emma says goodbye to her parents, who she's only really just gotten to know. She says goodbye to Neil. Henry says goodbye to Neil, who he's never really got to spend any much time with his father, but they say goodbye. They both say goodbye to Regina, and Emma thanks her for doing this for them, and for taking care of Henry. And Henry says goodbye to his mother, who raised him all these years. Emma also says a very flirty goodbye to Killian. So Emma and Henry get in the Yellow Beetle, and as they're driving away, we flash back to the scene from the beginning of the first episode of series 3. And we see it's just the same. Emma's giving birth. The doctor asks her if she wants to hold Henry, and she changes her mind. So this is Regina changing their memories. Emma changes her mind and she says, actually, please let me hold him. And she holds him and she goes, oh my god, I can't give him up. In this version of reality that Regina has put in their heads, Emma kept Henry. He was in foster care while she finished her sentence in jail. When she got out, she took him back. They ended up living a life together. So Emma is a bounty hunter. She lives in the same apartment she always did, but also she has a kid. Now logistically, I don't know how that worked financially for her when she'd just gotten out of jail. I imagine it was very difficult, but the point is she did it and they were fine. The last scene of the mid-series finale is Emma and Henry in their apartment in probably Boston, maybe Chicago, and they're having a lazy Saturday in. They're playing video games. They're doing really well. There's a knock on the door, just like there was in the pilot. There's a knock on the door. Emma goes to answer it in her pajamas, and who's standing there? Killian Jones. Killian Jones is standing there. And that is the cliffhanger of the mid-season finale. At this stage, I might as well just go on and talk about 3B as well, because it's not as connected, it's not as complete a story as 1 to 3A are, but it does sort of close off the second curse. So let's talk about 3B quickly. So in the first episode of 3B, we continue the scene that we saw in the 3A finale, and it is Emma opening the door. Killian's there. Killian, because listen, I love Killian. Killian's my boy, but he's also a fucking fool. Killian grabs Emma and he kisses her because he thinks maybe true love's kiss will break the curse. Now this is stupid for a lot of reasons. Firstly, she doesn't remember him, and we've already learned in canon that you cannot have true love with someone when their memories are gone, because they don't love you if they don't remember who you are. So you can't have true love's first kiss. Secondly, they were not in love. They were attracted to each other, certainly, and there was the potential of future love between the two of them that was established in 3A, but they're not together yet. So there was never any chance that this was going to work. Anyway, from Emma's perspective, she's just being kissed by a strange man at the door, so she punches him in the face. And she kicks him out of her apartment building, and she's like, never show your face around here again. That night, Emma goes on a date with her boyfriend. Henry's excited about this date because he thinks that Emma's boyfriend is going to propose to her. And he's right. Emma's boyfriend attempts to propose to her. Killian Jones shows up and fights him, and it turns out the man that Emma has been dating for a year, because they've been living post second curse for a year. It took Killian a year to find her, to find a way back. We'll get into it in a minute, but basically Killian has spent a year trying to get to Emma. In that year, she's been dating this man. It turns out he's a flying monkey. So Emma, canonically, has dated a flying monkey from The Wizard of Oz. Also, canonically, they're able to shapeshift into humans? I don't know. We never come back to this, so I'm not really clear on what's happening here. Anyway, seeing a flying monkey, I think, causes Emma to get her memories back because she's reminded of magic or something like that. And so Killian's like, hey, you have to come back to Storybrooke and break the second curse. Everything's fucked up. So Emma and Henry and Killian all get into the Yellow Beetle and they go back to Storybrooke. Now the thing is, Henry still does not have his memories back, so he just thinks they're going on a little road trip with this random man that has turned up that his mother seems to be constantly annoyed by. They get to Storybrooke, and obviously everyone is delighted to see them. But obviously it's weird because they have to pretend they don't know Henry. And so Snow and David are like trying to be grandparents to him, but he's like, who are these random older people that are friends with my mother that want to, hang out with me all the time? This is strange. Emma does not want Henry to get his memories back. She wants him to be able to have a normal childhood. So, in a strange turn of events, she decides that the safest person right now for Henry to be around is actually Killian. So she sends Henry off with Killian to go fishing, and that keeps him out of way of like the magic shit that's going down. Regina is really going through it because Henry is back. She thought she was never going to see him again. Now he's back and he doesn't remember who she is. So she is just like having the worst time grieving that her son is back and doesn't remember her. She has her heart back in her chest at this point, I think. I can't remember why that happens, but it does. So the reason that we're flying monkeys, keeping an eye on Emma in wherever she was, is because the Wicked Witch, she's here now. She's come over from Oz. She's her fabulous green self. Her name is Zelinda. It turns out Zelinda is Regina's half-sister. Because we find out in a flashback that when Cora was a young woman, she was actually really poor. She was the daughter of the miller in the small town where she grew up. She worked in a bar. She met a man. He told her that he was a prince. And she thought they were in love and going to run away together. So they had sex and then he abandoned her. And she found out she was pregnant and she freaked out, and her plan was to marry a rich man, and she thought that would never happen if she was pregnant. So she, at this point already, I think has magic. She learns magic from Rumpelstiltskin and they fall in love. But then she decides to take out her heart and abandon him because she wants to be powerful. And she sends Zelinda off in a magical tornado to like abandon her somewhere else. So Zelinda's really bitter about all this. I'm not sure at what point she found out that Cora was her mother, because like she was literally an infant when this all went down. She doesn't remember it. She was taken in by Munchkins, I think, in Munchkin Land, but they hated her because she had magic and they found that threatening, and so she was bullied a lot, and being bullied turned her skin green. Anyway, Zelinda has shown up to get revenge on Regina because Regina is the daughter that Cora kept, and in her mind she's like, oh, Regina got everything that I should have had. She fails to realize that actually her and Regina are in the same boat. They both suffered because Cora was a horrible, abusive nightmare of a person. So Zelinda is trying to destroy Regina's life. She's also, I think she's keeping Rumpelstiltskin chained up in a barn and like trying to seduce him. It's very strange. At one point, Cora manipulates Zelinda by pretending that actually she loves her and she's happy to see her, and she's missed her all this time. She manipulates her into teaming up so that they can take down Regina and everybody else, but Cora actually just wants power, and I think Zelinda ends up murdering her. So Cora's dead now. Oh, also I forgot to cross off Peter Pan. He's also dead. I'm pretty sure it's at this point that Robin Hood is introduced. This is another character I hate. Not because he does anything wrong, but just because he's really boring, and he makes Regina more boring. So it turns out that like in the past, Regina did a spell to find out who her true love, what her actual true love was, and it turned out it was Robin Hood, but she never got up the courage to talk to him. So when he arrives in Storybrooke, I can't remember why, there's something about Robin Hood and the Merry Men escape something and go to Storybrooke. When he turns up, Regina's really happy to see him because she's like, oh, that's the dude that was supposed to be my true love, and they end up falling in love. Something happens, Zelinda gets banished back to Oz, or she runs away or disappears or something. Anyway, she's gone, and it's the episode before the two-part finale. So it's like the penultimate episode of the season. Henry still doesn't have his memories back. But now that the whole Zelinda thing has kind of been sorted out, Emma is planning to take Henry away again. Regina is really sad about this, but she also accepts that, yeah, that's probably the best thing for Henry. So she says goodbye to them, and she gives Henry a hug, and she kisses him on the forehead. And because her heart is now back in her chest, that's true love's kiss. So the curse ends up breaking, and Henry gets his memories back. So we now canonically know that Regina and Emma both have true love for Henry. He is like equally their son. He's also technically Neil's son, but I hate Neil, so we're just gonna get rid of Neil. Also, Neil dies, but I don't think that's until next season. Or maybe it is this season. Neil dies at some point. Maybe he dies in Neverland. They have a funeral, I think. So Neil's dead, but it doesn't matter because Henry has got two loving parents, Regina and Emma. And he has also got his grandparents, Snow White, Prince Charming, Rumpelstiltskin, and Mila, but Mila is dead. So Henry's got his memories back, but there's something else happening, some sort of other curse-related thing. Oh, it's that Zelinda... No, I know what happens to Zelinda. Zelinda time travels back to the Enchanted Forest. Her plan is to stop Snow and David from falling in love, so they never have Emma, and therefore there is no savior, and the curse never gets broken. So Emma and Killian go back in time after her, and they have to make sure that Snow and David meet. So it's basically a Back to the Future situation. While they're back in the past, they end up properly falling in love. So these two are in love now. They save Snow and David's relationship, so those two do fall in love, so Emma continues to exist. And while they're there, Emma gets captured. She's put in the dungeon. Killian goes to rescue her, but funnily enough, he meets her on her way out because she's already freed herself and all of the other prisoners. Like, she's sorted this out. And it's really funny because she's like literally about to go out the door and he bursts in and he's like, but I was coming to rescue you. And she's like, well, I'm rescuing myself. Stop interrupting. It's great. So Emma and Killian go back to Storybrooke in the present, and they bring all these prisoners with them. Now that's a really terrible idea. You shouldn't take people randomly into the future. There could be repercussions. And indeed there are repercussions, because it turns out one of these prisoners that Emma has rescued is Marion, who is Robin's wife that he assumed was dead because she was captured and sentenced to be executed by Regina, as it turns out. Emma essentially breaks up Regina's relationship with her true love by bringing Marion back to life. So now Regina hates Emma again. Oh, I forgot to put on characters that disappear, right? So I'm not going to put Neil here. Neil gets lots of screen time and he gets written out, but like in a way that I think is a good conclusion to his character. It's not like a Graham situation. But who should be up here is Neil's girlfriend, who I forgot to mention at all. When Neil turns up, he has a fiance. I don't remember her name, so I'm just gonna write down Neil's fiance because she disappears. She might also be like a random fairy tale creature in disguise. I can't remember, but anyway, Neil's fiance. So that's pretty much the end of series 3. The day is saved. Everyone's living happily ever after, except for Regina, who swears revenge on Emma for ruining her happily ever after by bringing Marion back from the dead. They're all having a party at Granny's diner, and Emma looks around. Killian's not there. She goes outside and she finds him like sitting there on his own. She asks him, oh, so, are you leaving soon? Like, what's happening? And he's like, oh, well, I can't leave because I don't have my ship. Because he has not had his ship this whole half season. And she's like, yeah, whatever happened to your ship? And it turns out the reason he doesn't have his ship anymore is because he traded the Jolly Roger, which was the most important thing in the world to him, was his ship. He traded the Jolly Roger in order to get passage to New York or Chicago or wherever it is they were, in order to go get Emma back and like save her and also save like everybody by getting her back in order to break the curse. And Emma's like, oh, you gave up your ship for me? And he's like, yeah. Implying that like he would give up anything for her. At this point, this man is like fully in love. And Emma kisses him. It's their first kiss. They are you know, in their happily ever after era, and everything's good, except for the fact that, you know, Regina's pissed off. Also, we get the implication that basically the cliffhanger for this episode, like everything's happily ever after, but we get the cliffhanger that there's ice coming. Ice. Ice powers. Oh my god, guess who's coming? It's fucking Elsa. So that's the end of season 3B of Once Upon a Time. I actually think that's a really good place to stop, because as you see here, like that, really, these 3 seasons are kind of like a complete story in and of themselves. I think of all of them, season 1 is probably the most coherent story, but 2 and 3, like 2, I can't imagine 2 is a very good season because I remember almost none of it. But 3 kind of makes up for it. I think 3A is probably better than 3B. Or maybe 3B is better. I don't know. I honestly can't remember because I remember hating the Neverland arc. But I don't remember much about the Oz arc. So maybe they're equally as bad. I don't know. But the point is there's some interesting character stuff here, and I think the 3 of them taken together make a pretty good show. When we talk about 4A and the Frozen arc, I am a defender of the Frozen arc. I actually think it's really good fun, but it is unnecessary. I think everything that comes after the finale of 3B is unnecessary extra. Now, I enjoy this part of the unnecessary extra. I could have done without all of this. So, we'll get into that later. I mean, obviously, looking at the board, it's just chaos, and I do think that that is an accurate representation of the show as a whole. There are actually much fewer characters on the missing characters list than I would have expected, but I think the reason for that is that I have forgotten a lot of the characters that disappeared. I honestly kind of want to rewatch Once Upon a Time, and I know I'm going to regret starting it because it gets so bad, and I know I'm not going to enjoy most of it, but there's something in me that's just like, yes, this is what I must do. Alright, I am going to go and edit this into something vaguely coherent, and I will see you in the next episode of trying to remember the plot of Once Upon a Time and failing miserably. Lads, I'm going to be honest, I have somewhat lost my momentum for this project. I was going through yesterday's footage and like starting to edit it, and I remembered like 6 different things that I didn't mention, and this show is never ending. I feel like I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I'm just going to be stood here. The video's never going to get edited. It's never going to get uploaded. No one will ever see it. It will just be me looking into this camera and talking forever. And I just, frankly, I'm losing my mind. But the thing is, now that I've started, if I don't finish, it's such a waste of time. Like, it's a waste of time anyway. But if I don't finish, it's so much worse. So I'm just gonna power through, and we're just gonna do it, and it'll be fine. So as you can see, I've drawn a little key here as to what color means what season, just so I can keep it straight in my own head. We are gonna have to go back to green because I forgot like a really important chunk of story. Well, no, see, this is the problem. I forgot a large chunk of the plot of season 2. I said that as I was going through it. Like, I do not remember most of season 2. And I was forgetting a big chunk of it. But the reason for that is that it is irrelevant. You're watching it like week to week. I remember watching it as it was coming out and being really invested in this like chunk of plot that's going on in the Enchanted Forest. And then it just is never important again. Which is why I forgot that the characters in that section existed. And you know what? I'm not going to put them here. I'm going to put them directly over in missing characters. Season 2 introduces us to Mulan, Aurora, and Philip. I do not know if I've spelt Aurora right. I'm beyond caring at this point. So we learn at the beginning of season 2 that there are sections of the fairy tale realm that were not taken by the curse. The Enchanted Forest area, which in season 1 we're kind of led to understand that the Enchanted Forest is the entire fairy tale world, but actually there's a lot of different realms in there, and only the Enchanted Forest one. So the Enchanted Forest is basically like kind of a kingdom. It contains a few different kingdoms within it, but it's like what I hang on. I'm gonna try and draw it. This will not be accurate, but just for visual aids' sake. So like say this is the Enchanted Forest, and then it attaches to, I'm gonna call it Magic China, because that's essentially what it is. There's also Agrabah is somewhere around here. I'm gonna put it down here. And then Neverland, you know, we talk about Neverland in season 3. Neverland is like a different realm that's like somewhere over here that's not connected to these. It's not involved. I'm pretty sure there's other places in the fairy tale realm. Like there's Fairyland where the fairies live, which I think is in the Enchanted Forest, but there's also the Cloud Kingdom where the giants live, which is like above all of them. The geography of this place is very confusing. Anyway, the reason I'm even bringing this up, because if you think about it too long, it does start to melt your brain. So I advise not thinking about the geography in Once Upon a Time, because frankly, there's enough here to melt our brains already without worrying about this. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that in the beginning of season 2, we flash back to like Fairy Tale Kingdom, but it's not actually a flashback. This timeline is happening concurrently with the present day Storybrooke timeline. And in it, we see Mulan, Aurora, and Philip. Now, Aurora, obviously, Sleeping Beauty. We see her, she's asleep. Philip turns up to kiss her and wake her up, but then there's something about a dragon. Maybe Philip turns into a dragon, or he's taken away by a dragon or something. So Philip is with his buddy, this big warrior, and it's my favourite trope again, where Aurora's like, "Oh, kind Sir Knight, where's Philip?" And the knight takes off their helmet, and oh my goodness, it's a woman, it's Mulan. So now Mulan and Aurora have to go find Philip. He's, again, been taken by a dragon, turned into a dragon, something related to that. So over the course of many episodes in season 2, we flash to them. It's like unconnected to everything else. Basically, Aurora and Mulan tracking through the forest, trying to get Philip back, and eventually they do, and it's fine. The reason that they're important is that Mulan, as all kind of Mulan retellings are, Mulan is heavily queer-coded, and yet narratively, it is said that Mulan is in love with Philip, and that's why she hates Aurora, and she is so determined to get Philip back. And obviously Aurora's in love with Philip. They spend so much time together, they have kind of queer vibes. The fandom at the time really, really shipped them. So when Aurora and Philip do get back together and they've saved him, and Aurora is, happy and in love and married, Mulan turns up and she has something to say. It is left ambiguous whether or not she is about to confess her love for Philip or for Aurora, but she's definitely there to confess her love for someone. But before she can do that, Aurora tells her that she's pregnant, and Mulan is like visibly devastated, and then she leaves. And then all of these characters disappear. Now Mulan herself, she's gonna turn up again eventually, but she spends so long missing that I think she should live over here. And also, after she turns up, she disappears again pretty fucking quickly. So I think having them over here on missing characters makes sense. So just bear in mind, that's something that's happened in season 2. It is not brought up at all in season 3. Oh, another thing that I forgot, which is a much shorter thing. I said Grumpy's original name was Happy. It was actually Dreamy. So that was just me getting confused. Alright, I think that's all the corrections I have to make. Again, I'm sure I'm forgetting or misremembering loads of stuff, but that's all I can think of for now. So let's move on to series 4. We saw in the season 3 finale, we got a little glimpse of Elsa, magical ice queen Elsa from Frozen, appearing in a barn. So we get the rest of that. She appears in a barn, she doesn't know why she's there. Elsa's just kind of wandering around Storybrooke going, what's going on, where am I, blah 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 blah. She gets frightened by people and accidentally creates a snow monster which starts attacking the town, and Emma has to fight it with her magic, and Emma ends up destroying a building because she's a lot more powerful than she realized she was. Elsa apologizes to them and she's like, listen, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to create a monster. Sometimes I can't control my powers when I'm emotional. I didn't mean to attack you guys. And Emma is like full on just ready to accept her and believe her. Some of the other people are a little bit more skeptical, but because Emma's also having issues controlling her powers, she has a lot of sympathy for Elsa and they kind of bond. The snow monster has run off into the woods, and so Elsa, Killian, and Emma run off to go and defeat the monster. Emma is doing like literally everything in her power to leave Killian behind. She does not want him there for any sort of fight. And he's getting like progressively more frustrated by this because like he wants to be by Emma's side and help her out in situations and she's just not having it. And they end up having this fight because Killian is annoyed because he thinks that Emma thinks that like he's not capable of helping her out, and he's like, just because I don't have magic doesn't mean I can't help fight the creatures. And Emma's like, that's not what this is about. And he's like, well, I don't understand what it could possibly else be about. And she's like, dude, literally everyone I have ever been romantically invested in has died. Which is true, and I think we need to examine that for a second. So, Emma's love interests as of season 4 have been Neil, and he is dead. Briefly, we had Graham, dead. Then we had August. August didn't die, but he did get turned into a little boy. And I feel like that should count, so I'm just gonna write little boy. And now we have Killian. Now, Killian at this point, still alive, but that could change at any moment. Now, while we're in this little tangent, I think it's important to talk about Emma's non-canon love interests. The biggest one, obviously, that we have to talk about is Regina. The queer coding in the relationship between these two is just off the chart, and it has been since, the pilot. This is very much not one of those ships that the fandom just created from thin air. This is deliberate on the show's part. And while it was obviously never going to become canon, I do think it's interesting to note that when the show decided to give Emma a more permanent love interest, which is Killian. Killian sticks around, by the way. If you haven't seen the show, Killian's here till the bitter end. But when they were giving Emma like a proper boyfriend in the show, there's a lot of similar characteristics between these two. Killian starts out a villain. He continues, even after his redemption, continues to be morally ambiguous. He wears a lot of black and leather. He's got dark hair. He's kind of smirky. You could say all of that about Regina. And I'm not saying that was necessarily deliberate, but I just think the parallels between these two are kind of interesting when you consider they both have very intense connections with Emma. A character that very much is written in as a queerbait partner for Emma is Lily. Now, we're not going to get to Lily until season 4B. Just bear in mind, when we get to Lily, she and Emma have a very, Jennifer's Body-esque, toxic girl, queer platonic friendship going on. And I feel like that can't be anything but deliberate, so I am going to mark this down as a queerbait. So all this to say, Emma does have valid reasons for being worried that Killian's going to die, but he's fine, he's a capable dude, and she accepts that. She lets him help, they kill the snow monster, it's all fine. When we get flashbacks to Elsa, we should put, quick, because it's not part of the Enchanted Forest, so I'm gonna put it somewhere down here. Let's just say Frozen Land is somewhere here. It's near the Enchanted Forest, but it's not in the Enchanted Forest. So we get Elsa's flashbacks. We see, obviously, Anna and Kristoff and the whole gang. And here we learn more about their parents. Now, if you've seen Frozen, you know that Anna and Elsa's parents die in a shipwreck. And it is stated here that they were on that ship because they were sailing off to the Enchanted Forest to try and find a way to take away Elsa's magic. So on top of all the guilt and anxiety that Elsa just already feels all day, every day, when she finds this out, because she finds an old diary and this is how she finds out this information, when she finds this out, she goes, oh no, I'm the reason my parents are dead. And it just compounds all of her trauma and adds to it. These two, terrible, they have terrible parents. Elsa takes it upon herself to go and find out where her parents were going and what was going on, which is why she ends up in Storybrooke looking for answers. But she's kind of forgotten that. I think she has amnesia at this point. I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anna turns up. She turns up in Storybrooke looking for Elsa. The two of them become friends with Emma. All of this Frozen stuff is basically like the main plot of 4A. But in the background, Rumpelstiltskin is just like up to shenanigans. He and Belle are like living their happily ever after. I think Belle is pregnant or like has had a baby at this point. I can't remember exactly when, but I'm gonna say they have a kid by now. So Belle fully believes that Rumpelstiltskin has changed his ways because he's told her that he's changed his ways, but it's a fucking lie. While he's scheming in the background, Emma finally gets up the courage to ask Killian out on a date. Like, this man is so overtly head over heels for her, but they've never been on an actual date, so Emma is really nervous and she asks him out, and she really thinks there is the possibility that he's going to say no. As if this man would ever say no to her about anything. Anyway, she asks him out. It's very cute, but, and, God, this plotline infuriates me. Killian has a sudden bout of self-consciousness. Now, I don't mind that in theory. I think that has the potential to be an interesting, like, little character plotline for him. But it comes out of nowhere. We have never seen Killian ever show any self-consciousness about the fact that he only has one hand. If anything, he wears it with a badge of pride. But suddenly, he's feeling very self-conscious about the fact that he only has one hand, and he gets in his head that, like, oh, they're going on a date, so Emma might want to, like, I mean, it's not said in so many words because, again, it's like a family ABC show, but basically he gets in his head that they might have sex, which, you know, is a fair possibility. They haven't had sex yet, and now that they're going on this date, Killian thinks now might be the time, and he suddenly goes, oh my goodness, I can't have sex with Emma if I've only got one hand, which is just not true. And again, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad plotline for his character. But what is a bad plotline for his character is that he thinks the solution to this issue is to go to Rumpelstiltskin and make a deal with him to give him back his hand. What the fuck? Like, bear in mind, and I know they've sort of buried the hatchet a little bit in that Killian has agreed not to murder Rumpel, but Rumpelstiltskin killed the first love of his life, Mila. He also cut off Killian's hand. I didn't mention this before, but like, Killian is kind of hundreds of years old, technically, because he's been in Neverland for a very long time, and you don't age in Neverland, so he's been waiting in Neverland until he can find Rumpelstiltskin to murder him. So Killian has been planning this murder for like hundreds and hundreds of years, and he's given up on it now, and he has like decided that revenge is not going to make him happy. Fine, but like, why would he ever ask Rumpelstiltskin for a favor? And why would he ever make a bargain with him? Like, this is just not in character for him to do. So he makes a bargain with Rumpelstiltskin. Rumpelstiltskin is going to give him a hand. So Killian now has two working human hands. He turns up to pick up Emma for their date. Bear in mind, Emma still lives in the loft with Snow. You know, David also lives there now. There are no walls in this loft. I don't know if I described the loft, but like, it's a loft. So there's really no privacy in this loft. Emma lives with her parents who are the same age as her, who are fucking constantly. It's just very awkward. And so they're there waiting when Killian comes to pick her up, and they're being really, really cringe. And like, I get it from their perspective in that they really didn't get a chance to raise Emma, and so now they're having the experience of like a suitor is turning up for their daughter, and like it's a very fundamental moment for them. And also neither of them really like Killian, like they don't trust him because he used to be evil, which, you know, fair enough, I can understand that. But so they're very, very suspicious, and they're being very overprotective, which again, from their perspective, very cute. I actually don't hold this against them. Emma, why the hell are you still living here? Why are you still living here? I get that you're enjoying building a relationship with your parents and you like spending time with them, but you live in the smallest town in the world. You'll see them all the time anyway. Please, for the love of God, move out. So Killian picks up Emma. They go out on their date. Emma has very little reaction to the fact that Killian now has 2 working human hands, and that is also so out of character for her. She's like, hey, you've got a hand, and he's like, yeah, I did a spell, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then she just doesn't worry about it. What? Nobody is acting in character in this episode. So they go out to dinner and it's all very romantic, but then Killian ends up like threatening a waiter and like being really aggressive, and it seems like he's not in control of himself. And it's because the hand he got from Rumpelstiltskin is evil. He was given an evil hand. Now, obviously he was. Rumpelstiltskin's not just gonna randomly do a good deed for him. Like, why would he do that? So Killian spends the rest of the date trying to control his evil hand without Emma finding out. He walks her home, they have a goodnight kiss, it's very sweet. But the one thing he wanted to be able to do on this date was to like properly hold Emma, and he can't do that because one of his hands is evil. So after he's dropped off Emma, he goes to find Rumpelstiltskin and he's like, dude, what the fuck, why did you give me an evil hand? And Rumpelstiltskin's like, I gave you what you wanted. You wanted a hand, I gave you a hand, and you still owe me a favor. So Rumpelstiltskin, you know, Killian does not want this evil hand. Rumpelstiltskin takes away his hand. We're back to one-handed Killian. And he still owes Rumpelstiltskin a favor. And this is such an obvious thing of like, the writers needed Killian to owe Rumpel a favor. But like, this was the best way they could come up with it. Like, just, guys, put a little bit more thought into it, please. Killian is now indebted to Rumpel. In the background, while all this is happening, Regina and Robin have started having an affair behind Marion's back. Anyway, then the Snow Queen turns up. Like the original Snow Queen from the fairy tale, rather than like Snow Queen Elsa. The Snow Queen is played by the same actor that plays Juliet in Lost. I love her. Again, don't remember the actor's name, but she's great. It turns out she's been in town the entire time. Like, she's run the ice cream shop in Storybrooke, which again, we've never seen until this point. But apparently there's been an ice cream shop here the whole time, and she's been here, and I'm pretty sure she had her memories the whole time because she deliberately entered the curse because she's so powerful. She went there because she wanted to get to Emma, because it turns out the Snow Queen has like been looking for Emma for ages. She came to our world in the like, I think Emma was like 16 or something, and the Snow Queen turned up, and she was Emma's foster mother for a while, and also I believe foster mother to Lily, who we're going to talk about in a little while. So the Snow Queen was like one of the only people in Emma's childhood that actually cared about her and was nice to her. Emma does not remember her though, because the Snow Queen wiped her memories of her, and it turns out the Snow Queen also did this to Elsa, because she is Elsa and Anna's aunt. She's where the magic comes from in their family, and it apparently was the same. Elsa and Anna's mother was the sister of the Snow Queen. The Snow Queen was the only one that had ice powers, and so they had that same kind of dynamic that Elsa and Anna do. But the difference was that they had a third sister, and the third sister died because the Snow Queen couldn't control her ice powers. So when Anna and Elsa's mother found out that Elsa had ice powers, she was really, really frightened that Elsa was going to accidentally kill Anna the same way the Snow Queen had killed their sister, which is why Elsa's parents were so determined to get rid of her powers. So apparently the Snow Queen's plan all along has been to find magical blonde girls to then recreate her trio of sisters so she won't be alone anymore. So she decided Elsa would be one and Emma would be the other, which is why she came to our world to find Emma. Not because Emma's like the savior, or involved in this curse, like she had her own reasons for looking for Emma. She's wiped Elsa and Emma's memories of her from when they were young. I can't remember why. It's something about her curse. Shattered Sight. She's planning to do a curse called Shattered Sight, which basically makes everybody evil. So she casts this curse and it works on everybody except Emma and Elsa, because the Snow Queen doesn't want to hurt them. They, in her mind, they are her sisters now. So Emma and Elsa have to like lock everybody up in the cells of the sheriff's station, because otherwise they'll all start like murdering each other. It's really intense and weird. I can't remember how, but Emma and Elsa end up combining their powers to break the Snow Queen's curse. They defeat her. I'm pretty sure she dies. The thing is, I really remember enjoying this half of the season. I loved the Snow Queen arc. I thought it was great. Now trying to describe it, it doesn't sound very good, and I don't remember a lot about it. But I feel like if I rewatch it, I'll remember why I like it. I think I probably like it so much because the acting is really good in it. Like, the three actors, obviously Jennifer Morrison, who plays Emma, is great. But her in combination with the girl that plays Elsa and the girl that plays the Snow Queen, they have a really good dynamic. I think it's really interesting. I like seeing that somebody was nice to Emma when she was a child, even if she doesn't remember it, because those memories were taken. And as well, because it's only a half season arc, it's pretty succinct in the storytelling. It doesn't drag. So yeah, I enjoy it. I know I didn't talk about it a lot, but I do enjoy it. However, what I do not enjoy is the mid-season finale of season 4, which is setting up season 4B. So we've dealt with the Snow Queen. Anna and Elsa are still in town. They're getting ready to leave, and Rumpelstiltskin calls in his favor, and he makes Killian take this magic hat, because Rumpel's found this magic hat. It's really, really stupid. Killian is forced to, I think at this point, Rumpelstiltskin's taken his, that's what it is, Rumpelstiltskin's taken his heart. So Emma has kind of been sensing that Killian's off a little bit, like he's not acting very different, but like there's just something different, like he's not as affectionate as he was, and it's because Rumpelstiltskin has his heart. So Rumpelstiltskin uses Killian's heart to make him use the hat to he basically has to suck a load of magic users into this hat, which steals their magical powers and gives them to Rumpelstiltskin, because he's trying to become the most powerful specialist boy in the world. Which he kind of already is. He already has so much power. He does not need more power, but he's greedy megalomaniac. Rumpelstiltskin orders Killian to suck Emma and Elsa into the magic hat. He's not able to resist doing this because his heart is controlled, so he tries to attack them. They end up getting away. They find out that this was Rumpelstiltskin all along, and everyone's pissed off with him. Most of all, Belle. Belle is completely heartbroken that he's been doing this. He's been scheming behind the scenes the whole time, especially because she's either pregnant or has had their child or whatever, but she is devastated. And so because I never mentioned the knife. There's this special knife, right? The way Rumpelstiltskin became the Dark One, which is like a super magic, it's almost like a magic possession kind of thing. Like you let this incredible dark magic power possess you and you have access to all the power. But to get that power, you have to murder the last person that had it with this special knife. And the knife is the only thing, when you're the Dark One, the only thing that can defeat you is this special knife. Rumpelstiltskin, as a sign that he was reformed, gave this knife to Belle. So Belle is the only person that can control Rumpelstiltskin. And after all this comes out, Belle uses the knife to order Rumpelstiltskin to leave town and never come back. And she's sobbing while this is happening, but she is finally just had enough of this man's bullshit and lies and gaslighting, because he has been gaslighting her as long as they've known each other. And it's this incredibly powerful character moment for her to finally stand up for herself. Now it's all gonna get undone and it's really frustrating, but like in this moment, it's an incredible Belle moment and I love it for her. Emma gets Killian's heart back from where Rumpelstiltskin hid it and she shoves it back in his chest and he's fine again. So that's the end of 4A. In 4B, we get flashbacks to Emma's past. Maybe that happens in 4A, but it's a continuation of that. Anyway, we see that Emma had this friend called Lily that she met in foster care, and they used to do like petty crimes together. This is when Emma is like 15, 16. So bear in mind, this is only a year before she meets Neil and gets pregnant. And I think that's important to note because in the flashbacks with Neil, they have Jennifer Morrison playing herself at like 17, 18. But in the flashbacks with Lily, they cast teenage actors that are like basically the 16, 17. So when you're thinking about Neil and Emma, you have to remember you shouldn't be picturing Jennifer Morrison. You should be picturing these like tiny children. Like the fact that I will never forgive Neil because he was like 24. A 24-year-old has no right to be getting a 17-year-old pregnant. There's no excuse for that. Neil may be dead, but my hatred for him is not, and it never will be. So in 4B, adult Lily shows up. Turns out she's the secret daughter of Maleficent, so she's half dragon. There is more to that, and in some of it I really enjoyed. I thought it was really interesting. But as soon as 4B finishes, Lily and Maleficent go straight over here to missing characters, and it's really frustrating. Now, I'm pretty sure 4B is where we get the Three Queens arc, but that might have been 5A. And if this was 4B, then I have no idea what happens in 5A. So just bear that in mind. There's definitely a half season here that I'm forgetting, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it is, and frankly, I don't care anymore. The Three Queens turn up, and they're Maleficent, Cruella de Vil, who's not a queen, she's just a lady that likes murdering dogs. Do you remember the Cruella movie with Emma Stone, and it gave her a tragic backstory that like her mother was murdered by Dalmatians, so she wants to murder Dalmatians? This Cruella, which is one thing I really appreciate about this show, this Cruella is like the only villain they have ever introduced that doesn't have a tragic backstory. She's just crazy and hates dogs. That's her whole personality. Like, it's literally canon that like every single other villain has some sort of like understandable motivation, but Cruella de Vil was just born evil. She was also born in a different dimension. And I think like this is where the kind of dimension hopping comes in. Because you see here, Enchanted Forest, Magic China, Agrabah, and Frozen, they all exist in like one realm. And our realm is another realm, but there are also all these other realms. There's like 1920s realm, which firstly isn't a thing. It shouldn't be a thing, it doesn't make any sense, but that's a realm apparently. There's also like Gothic literature realm. So there's like, we meet Victor Frankenstein at one point, and I don't think he ends up being important, but he turns up and like they go to his realm and visit him, and also he's maybe also in addition to being Victor Frankenstein, he's also Jekyll and Hyde. Oh yes, because that becomes important later, so maybe this doesn't happen yet. I genuinely can't remember. But the Jekyll and Hyde thing becomes important, so I'm going to write down Dr. Jekyll. I was going to write Dr. For some reason I wrote Mr., and we're just going to commit to that. So Mr. Jekyll plus Dr. Hyde. So Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde, they are not here yet. I think they turn up in 6A, so we've got a whiles to go yet, but they're going to be important. So 4B, as far as I remember, is where they retcon in all the dimension hopping and like say, oh yeah, it's been happening the whole time. It hasn't. It's a retcon, and I think it's really stupid. But from now on, that's just going to be a thing. So the evil queens show up. They all have beef with Killian, but also with Snow, because it turns out Snow like murdered a bunch of people because her and David were told a prophecy that their child was gonna be capable of being evil, which, like, firstly, everyone's capable of being evil. The whole conceit of the show for the past, like, 3.5 seasons is that anyone is capable of becoming evil, but at the same time, everyone is capable of becoming good. Like, it's a matter of circumstance, but it's also a matter of, do you give in to the darkness within, or do you try to be a good person even when your life is shitty? That's the premise of the show. That's what its big thematic point is. So to introduce the fact that, like, Emma could have been evil, and the only way to prevent her becoming evil was for Snow White to murder a bunch of people is just batshit insane. I'm not even going to talk about it further. Like, it's so insane. And then the show kind of goes on and, like, pretends that this isn't canon. But, like, if it's not canon, then why did you put it in the show? Why would you do that? It's just so stupid. There's a lot more that happens in this half season, but, like, I don't really remember. I don't care to remember. I just know that I hated all this. So we're gonna move on to season 5. I am pretty sure that there was a whole half season here that I am forgetting and not gonna mention. So we're just gonna have to deal with that. It's something to do with Emma. Like, Rumpelstiltskin turns back up and he's even eviler than before because he's been rejected by a woman, which obviously is going to make him so much more evil. I hate this man. But yeah, Rumpelstiltskin is back and he's mega evil. Belle forgives him for some reason, so they're back together. I'm pretty sure it's 5A where we get the return of Ruby. Ruby has been gone. She's been in Missing Characters for ages, but she comes back, right? And she ends up spending a lot of time with Mulan. So Ruby and Mulan are, like, traveling around the Enchanted Forest doing things. I can't remember what or why, but they're like a little buddy duo. Now, in the production break between seasons, and this is important, it was revealed by the creators that Ruby was going to get a girlfriend. She was going to be made canonically bisexual, which it had been speculated by the fan base for ages that Ruby was bisexual, and it was kind of implied, but it was never canon. They were going to make it canon that Ruby was bisexual, and we were all like, yay, that's great. So when they introduced her and Mulan, like, just traveling around together, Mulan, who has been queer-coded to high heaven and who was heavily implied to have been in love with Aurora, when we see the two of these characters together, spending a lot of time together, everyone in the fan base goes, oh, okay, so they're gonna get together and be girlfriends? No, they're not. At one point, Mulan just disappears, and she goes back to being an abandoned character, and Ruby, in the space of one episode, meets Dorothy Gale from Oz, falls in love with her, Dorothy gets put under a sleeping curse, Ruby kisses her. Bear in mind, they're not together yet. Ruby is just in love with her, like, secretly. Dorothy gets put under a sleeping curse. Ruby, like, tries to kiss her because she thinks, oh, maybe it's true love. Turns out it is true love. It breaks the curse. They go off to live happily ever after, and Ruby officially stays here forever. Ruby is a missing character. And just, that all happens in the span of one episode. Also, now that I'm saying it, I think maybe that actually happens in 3B. So if that's the case, Ruby has been here a very long time in the missing characters category. But it's just so frustrating, because why establish this relationship between Ruby and Mulan that then just gets dropped and never mentioned again? Like, just make them girlfriends. Why randomly shove in Dorothy and speedrun their relationship over the course of a single episode to the point where it's like true love and it breaks a curse? Why not just do the relationship that you established? It doesn't make any sense. None of this ends up being important in the show at all, so just get rid of that. So Rumpelstiltskin, as I said before, is being a mega evil menace. He has to be stopped. Someone has to stab him with the magical dagger and take his powers. So basically, Regina and Emma are arguing about who's going to do it, because whoever does it then becomes the Dark One and so will become evil. So Regina says she's gonna do it for the good of everybody, but at the last minute, Emma wrestles the dagger off her and she does it and she gets Dark One powers. Except, plot twist, she doesn't. We spend, again, this must have been the finale of season 5. Or possibly, was it it was a finale anyway. I don't think it was a mid-season finale. I'm pretty sure it was like a season finale. So again, the fan base had a long time to kind of think about, oh my god, Dark Emma, that's gonna be so cool, what's it gonna be like, what's the plot gonna be? And then we got it, and it was so stupid. Instead of being fun evil, Emma is just like really cold and like monosyllabic and just emotionless. And it feels like an odd choice, but then it turns out, and we have to wait like a whole half season to find this out, that Emma is not actually the Dark One. Killian's the Dark One, because he took the Dark One powers off her to save her. So he's been the Dark One the whole time, and she has erased everybody's memories, including Killian's, because she thinks if she pretends to be the Dark One and he doesn't know that he actually is the Dark One, then he won't go evil, because he won't know that he has the power to go evil. So Killian is just quietly going evil the whole time, and Emma is trying to stop him, but like it's so stupid and it doesn't make any sense. So she spends all this time letting everyone think that she's evil, in fact encouraging everyone to think that she's evil. And this is like the modern day plot. We get flashbacks to they all went to Camelot, and like it's really, really bad. So the town realizes that they've all forgotten like 6 months of their lives, and Emma's like, I did it because I'm evil, but it turns out she's actually erased their memories of being in Camelot. They were all in Camelot for 6 months trying to find a cure to Emma being the Dark One, but then Killian just took the Dark One powers off her, which is why she erased everyone's memories. So nothing that happens in Camelot is important at all. And yet a load of Camelot characters stick around into season 6 but don't do anything. So like I'm gonna add Merlin and Arthur over here, because even though they don't necessarily go missing, they're just unimportant. Should I change this? Am I still on season 5? I think this is still season 5. Merlin might be a love interest to somebody at some point. Who does he fall in love with? I don't know. Merlin is in love with somebody. I can't remember who. It really doesn't matter. Season 5 finale. Emma has spent all this time trying to stop Killian turning evil and dying. And it doesn't work. And he ends up, instead of turning evil, does he kill himself? He dies. Anyway, he dies. And she's full of grief. So the cliffhanger is that she is going to go to the underworld to get Killian back. And that's the finale of season 5. Oh, a thing I didn't mention, which, again, oh, this is so batshit insane, right? So it turns out, do you remember I said, like, Regina was pissed at Emma because Emma brought Marion back from the dead, and then Regina and Robin started having an affair behind Marion's back? Turns out this wasn't Marion. This was Zelena in disguise. Because, do you remember, like, at the end of season 3, Emma and Killian followed Zelinda back into the past to stop her from, like, stopping Snow and David from getting together so Emma wouldn't be born. Well, it turns out Zelinda just disguised herself as Marion to then come back to the present with them. And Zelinda had sex with Robin Hood, disguised as his no longer dead wife, and now she's pregnant with his baby. So at some point, like, Zelinda just has Robin's baby. So Regina's half-sister is now the mother to her boyfriend's child. Like, why does that happen? It's so unnecessary. Season 6, we go to the underworld. We meet Hades. It turns out Hades and, where is she? Zelinda. Hades and Zelinda, they're each other's true loves. They met when Hades went to visit Oz at some point in the past, And at this point, Zelinda was like the Wicked Witch. She was controlling everything. They fell in love, but I think she rejected him because she was afraid of losing power if she was in love. So she rejected him. He was bitter about it. Now everybody's gone down to the underworld in order to get Killian back. And Hades is really bitter because Zelinda's here. But they end up making up and falling back in love. So now Zelinda is just like queen of the underworld because I think she gets married to Hades. While they're doing that, Emma's just like blasting her way through the underworld looking for Killian. And they keep coming across like all these dead people that they know. She runs into Neil at one point and Neil's like, oh, so you're trying to save Killian and not me? And she's like, yeah, Saz. And then they end up making up. Emma also, and far more importantly, meets Mila. Emma and Mila initially bond over the fact that like Emma is Killian's current love and she was his previous love and Emma's here to save Killian. But then Mila finds out that the father of Emma's child and her former true love was Neil, who I will remind you is Mila's son. So she gets real weirded out about the fact that Emma used to date her son and is now dating her ex-boyfriend. And you know what? Fair enough. It is really weird. Mila's got a fair point here. There's more shenanigans going on. I think Snow's also there, and like she has to come face to face with all those people she murdered, and that's kind of awkward. But anyway, Emma eventually finds Killian, she saves him, she brings him back to life, and frankly, all of this just raises more questions than it answers. I've added Underworld to the weird geography here. I'm pretty sure there's only one Underworld, so our realm, Enchanted Forest, like all the other realms, I think all of the dead people go to the Underworld, like regardless of where they come from. Everyone gets back to Storybrooke, Killian's alive, Emma and Killian get engaged. Meanwhile, Regina's tired of being evil. She really went through it down in the underworld. She met a lot of her victims and the people that she had murdered. Because again, Regina's murdered a shit ton of people. Including her father, by the way. I didn't mention this in season 1, but it's revealed that in order to do the curse, Regina had to destroy the heart of the thing she loved most. And the thing she loved most was her father. Even though her father was kind of ineffectual and never really did anything to care for her, anyway, her father was who she loved most. So she had to kill him in order to do the curse. His name was Henry, by the way, so she named Henry after her father who she murdered. And I think Regina runs into him in the underworld and there's like a lot of angst. So Regina doesn't want to be evil anymore. Even though she isn't evil anymore, she's done a lot to make amends, but she decides that she needs to get rid of her evil qualities once and for all. Which is what brings us down to Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde. At some point, and I cannot remember when, but at some point we get introduced to these two, who are actually one person, but they've been split into two people. Because basically they created a serum that separates out the good and the bad into two separate people, which is not a good plan. But Regina takes this serum, so now we've got two Reginas. We have got good Regina and the evil queen. So the evil queen is now a totally separate character to Regina. And the evil queen becomes our villain for 6B. The evil queen is running around trying to destroy everybody. And Regina's like, oh no, my evil half is trying to destroy the world. Of course she is. Of course she is. This was why you shouldn't have split her off. Also, and most disturbingly of all, evil queen ends up hooking up with Rumpelstiltskin. And when everyone's really confused about this and that's disgusting, Regina says, well, me and Rumpel did always have a connection. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. There was never sexual tension between these two, ever. And it would have been gross if there was, because, can I remind you, Rumpelstiltskin used to go out with her mother. And we don't have time to dwell on that, because Emma and Killian, it's their wedding. Emma gets married in a recreation of Grace Kelly's wedding dress when she married that prince, which is beautiful, but completely out of character for Emma. It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing about Emma's sense of style. Emma has a pretty consistent sense of style throughout the whole show, and I just do not see her getting married in something so extravagant. Like, Emma is far more likely to wear a kind of more modern wedding dress. Like, she turns out, Snow offers to give Emma her wedding dress, which we see her in the pilot of the show. She offers to give her her wedding dress to get married in, and Emma's like, oh, it's so old-fashioned, it's not really me. And yet she wears the Grace Kelly one. It's a very, very strange choice, and I personally think it's out of character. Anyway, they get married, and everybody's there, and it's like big, happily ever after. That's the end of season 6, and that is what should have been the series finale. That should have been the end of the show. But no. We still have season 7 to talk about. So we really sped through a lot of that, and that's because I remember so little about these later seasons that it all just kind of meshes into one. Season 7 is going to be even worse. So I'm going to take a break now, and we'll come back and we'll discuss season 7 later. Alright, listen. Season 7 is not irredeemably bad. I think there are things in there that are worthy of some praise. However, what season 7 is completely unfucking necessary. When it was announced that there was going to be a season 7 of Once Upon a Time, I think there was a lot of confusion in the fan base because season 6 was so clearly the show's finale. Now, some people were excited, obviously, because more of their favourite show, yay. But then we found out what season 7 was going to be. Season 7 of Once Upon a Time is essentially like a soft reboot, and it focuses on Henry Mills. What's important to know about Henry is that he is the specialist, most magical boy in all the world. Henry's a grown-up now. He is the author. Now, I never really explained to you what the author was, because I don't know what the author is. The author is a very nebulous title. Essentially, the author writes the book of fairy tales. They have the magic power to write down the history of the people of fairy tale land, but also in writing it, they can change the past, they can affect the future. Like, essentially, they're writing reality. I think I talked about this a little bit and how Walt Disney is also canonically like a former author. It's kind of like the Slayer, like there's one every generation, and when the old one dies, a new one is called. So we see Henry like first getting his powers and starting to come to terms with it at some point in the later seasons of Once Upon a Time. I do not remember when, and that is because it's boring and it's really stupid. However, in season 7, which is, again, like, soft reboot, essentially, it just should have been a spin-off. It should have been the Henry spin-off. It still would have been unnecessary, but then at least it's its own thing. The fact that they made it season 7 means that it's so dependent on the previous 6 seasons of the show, and yet it so clearly wants to be its own thing, and there's this cognitive dissonance going on that just does not work. So we meet adult Henry, and adult Henry has been like universe hopping for a while. I talked about universe hopping briefly, but just essentially there's lots of different realms. This is a multiverse kind of show. It doesn't start out that way, but it becomes a multiverse show. And Henry, because of his author powers, and also I think he is given, at some point at the end of season 6, Henry gets August's motorbike, and it's like a magical world-traversing motorbike or something. So Henry has inherited this motorbike, and he is going off to have his own adventures away from Storybrooke and like be an adult. Henry goes to like a kind of alternate version of the Enchanted Forest, and he meets Cinderella. Not this Cinderella, this OG Cinderella, she is still missing. He meets a different Cinderella, and they end up falling in love. She's running away from her life because it's shitty, because she's Cinderella, and they end up having a kid. What the kid's name is, cannot remember, but I think they have a daughter. So that's all great, they're living happily ever after, but then there is a curse. So bear in mind, this is the 3rd curse. Who sets the curse? I can't remember. I'm sure we're told, but I cannot remember. I think it might be Cinderella's evil stepmother, because she becomes the villain of this season. Madame Trevane, I can't remember if she has her memories or not. She must do. Okay, so let's say she does. Now, this third curse takes everyone from this alternate version of the Enchanted Forest to Portland. So instead of like a sleepy town in Maine where it's easy to kind of keep the fact that magic is happening contained, they're just in a major city. Much like the original Once Upon a Time curse, everyone has lost their memories and they have cursed memories of them always having lived in Portland, never having had magic, and a lot of the familial relationships like have been torn apart because nobody gets their happy ever after in Portland. As far as I remember, I am pretty sure that Henry does have his memories. That might be because of his author powers. I think what might have happened, and my memories of this are very vague, but I think what happened is that Henry was universe hopping. He met Cinderella, he fell in love, they had a kid. He decided to go back to his original universe to tell Emma and Regina and everybody that he had fallen in love and had a kid and it was all great. And he went to see them, and then when he got back to the alternate universe, everybody was gone and they'd been taken by the curse, which is why he's not caught up in the curse. Again, I could be making this up, but I have a vague memory that this is what happened. So Henry goes universe hopping again to try and find them. He gets to Portland, he finds them, but of course nobody remembers him. He meets Cinderella, she doesn't know who he is, so he has to get Cinderella to fall in love with him again so that they can do True Love's Kiss and break the curse. The other people who are caught up in the Portland curse, obviously Madame Trevane is here. She's, orchestrating the whole thing. We also have her daughter. Now, I cannot remember her daughter's name. My brain is telling me her daughter's name is Cora, but surely that can't be true, because why would they name her Cora when this is Cora? Unless this was like an alternate universe version of Cora, but she's much younger, she's played by a different actor. I'm gonna write down Cora, but just know that that's not her name. That can't possibly be her name. Cora, I believe she does have cursed memories, but she also knows that her mother is a witch and up to evil shit. And she's also a witch, and her mother tries to get her to hook up with Henry to distract Henry from Cinderella. But Cora ends up actually kind of falling for Henry, and Henry sort of likes her, and I think they do end up having sex at one point, but that's because he's upset about Cinderella. Cinderella is still his true love, I think. The other people that are in this Portland universe are Killian Jones, but it is important to note that this is not this Killian Jones. This is not the Killian Jones that is married to Emma. This is an alternate universe, or possibly alternate timeline Killian Jones, and we actually meet him at some point here. It's probably season 6, because a lot of stupid shit happens in season 6, but then there's a whole section of season 5 that I'm pretty sure I don't remember, so let's say it happens there. Actually, I think it's that Emma goes back in time, but it's like an alternate universe back in time. So in that previous timeline, Hook is not badass Captain Hook. He has become a coward after losing his hand, and Emma has to teach him to be brave, and then he follows her back to the prime timeline, Storybrooke timeline, and he's in love with her, but she's in love with original Killian, so this Killian is just sad. So I think he probably goes universe hopping as well, because he is trying to find a version of Emma that doesn't already have a Killian so that they can fall in love and have their happily ever after. That does not end up happening though. What ends up happening is that this I'm gonna put alt. So alt Killian Jones, right? He is traversing this alternate Enchanted Forest, or possibly it is the original Enchanted Forest. Again, I'm not clear. But he's wandering around and he's sad and he's drunk and he's looking for true love. Killian comes across a tower, and in that tower Rapunzel. Now, Rapunzel's like, oh, fair sir, you've come to rescue me. And Killian's like, actually, I was gonna rob this tower, but alright. And so it's set up that, like, oh, it's gonna be Tangled vibes, you know? He's gonna be the Eugene, she's gonna be the Rapunzel, and they're gonna have, like, a thief and princess sort of relationship. No. What ends up happening is that Rapunzel seduces Killian and gets pregnant, but then it turns out she's actually not Rapunzel. She is Gothel. And she has been trapped in this tower by Rapunzel, because the thing with the tower is that there's like a curse on it or something, so that there always has to be someone in there. So to escape the tower, you have to leave someone else in there. So Gothel has sex with Killian, disguised as Rapunzel. He wakes up the next day and she's gone and he's trapped in there. And then eventually I think she comes back and she's like, here's our baby, I don't want it. She gives it to him and she fucks off. So now Killian Jones could escape the tower because there's a baby there now. So that means he can leave. But like, Killian's a good dude at heart. He's not going to abandon a helpless child in this tower. So Killian decides he is going to raise his daughter and try and be a good person for his child. So he raises his daughter. He calls her Alice. He raises Alice in the tower. He obviously has to go out and get supplies, but he always comes back. And the two of them are trying to find a way to break the curse so that they can both leave and go have adventures. Because the one thing Alice wants in the whole world is to go have adventures. So at this point, Alice is like, I don't know, 17, 18, let's say. Killian goes out for supplies and then he never comes back. And she's like, what the fuck? My father abandoned me. But what actually happened was that when Killian went out to get supplies, he got caught up in the curse, had his memories removed, and was transported to Portland, where he's now a cop. So gross. Alice doesn't know this. She just thinks she's been abandoned. So she ends up finding a way to go universe hopping or something, and she goes to Wonderland. But it is not, I don't believe it is the same Wonderland from Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, because she is absolutely not the same Alice that we meet in Wonderland. She is a different alternate universe Alice. Alice is universe hopping, right? And eventually she ends up in Portland and she learns about the curse. So obviously, you know, it's upsetting for her that her dad is here and doesn't remember her. But she knows now that it was not his fault. He didn't mean to leave her. He got caught in a curse. So Alice she ends up homeless in Portland and everyone thinks she's crazy because she keeps talking about magic and it's actually really sad. But Alice is trying to find a way to break the curse. And Killian Jones, the cop, keeps having to like arrest her and reprimand her because she's like stealing shit and just going around breaking the law. And he just thinks that she is some homeless kid that he kind of feels bad for, and they form a connection. But obviously it's weird for Alice because like that's her dad and he doesn't remember her. Now, do you want to guess who Killian's partner is as a cop, his cop partner? It's Rumpelstiltskin. Now, you may be thinking, oh, so is this an alternate universe Rumpelstiltskin the way it's an alternate universe Killian Jones? No, this is this Rumpelstiltskin. This dude here, this is the same dude. So we learn in flashbacks, this is so fucking stupid. This is one of the things, a lot of things here infuriated me. This is the thing that pisses me off the most. So we learn in flashbacks that after the events of all of this, all these 6 seasons, Rumpelstiltskin and Belle decided they were going to go find a different universe to raise their child in because they wanted to find a land without magic so that Rumpelstiltskin wouldn't be tempted to be evil anymore. So they find a different universe, they're raising their kid, and they live in the house from Up. They just do the sad montage from Up. Now, I know this is not the biggest problem with this, but it's the thing that I fixate on. Belle is so much younger than Rumpel. Aside from the fact that like Rumpel's been alive and kept immortal for hundreds and hundreds of years with his magic, before he got his magic, he was like in his, I'd say, 40s or something, and Belle is like 20 if she's a fucking day. So the fact that Belle dies of old age before him is just, it's very strange. So their child is grown up, they're living their retired life together. Belle dies of old age, Rumple's consumed by grief, and so he goes looking for a universe where Belle is still alive. So he goes universe hopping. Everyone's universe hopping, and that's how we get here. So this version of Killian and Rumpelstiltskin, they're like best friends. And it's really weird. It's a weird pairing, and I don't like it. Also, in Curse Portland, we have got Tiana. Tiana from Princess and the Frog. She's here, and her whole thing is that she wants to open a restaurant, but she doesn't have enough money. So she decides she's going to open a food truck instead, and she's going to sell her beignets, which I absolutely am not able to spell. She's selling beignets out of a food truck, and they look delicious. Oh my god. This plotline is very dull because it's just people going, Tiana, you can't do that. And she's like, but I'm gonna. But oh my god, do those beignets look delicious, and I want one. So this is happening in the background. Somebody burns down her food truck to like ruin her happily ever after. And I can't remember who it is, but I have a feeling it might be Rumpelstiltskin. Because Rumple, even though he doesn't fully have his memories back, he thinks he's this cop. But in his sleep, he is being taken over by the Dark One. So not necessarily Rumpelstiltskin, but like Dark One Rumple. So Police Officer Rumple goes into a fugue state, and he's taken over by Dark One Rumple, who goes around fucking shit up. And he may or may not be the one that burns down this food truck. Now, all of this random plot ends up resolving itself somehow. How? Who knows? I don't know. Nobody in the world has watched season 7 more than once. And most people rage quit after the first episode, honestly. However, I do think that those people were mistaken, because there is one wonderful redeeming feature of this whole weird experiment. And that is my beloved Ronnie. Ronnie is Regina! But it's not Regina as we know her. Ronnie owns a bar, and she's like this punk rock, gorgeous, like, older woman, and oh my god, she always wears like t-shirts with the sleeves ripped off, and she listens to rock music, and she drinks whiskey, and I am obsessed with her. I love her. I love her. She doesn't actually get anything interesting to do. Like Ronnie barely gets any plot, but it doesn't matter because she's so beautiful. And you know, I like to think that if Ronnie and I, you know, the fictional character Ronnie, were ever to meet, she would approve of my taste in whiskey. Like, that's literally all I want in life, is for her to tell me I did a good job picking out whiskey. Now, is this Ronnie actually Regina, and is it OG Regina, or is it an alternate universe Regina? I do not know. They definitely tell us, but I do not remember. I think it might be OG Regina. Oh, Robin dies! Oh, I forgot that. When does Robin die? I'm pretty sure Robin Hood, so let's cross him out. Robin Hood, I believe, dies in like season 5. I think he dies in Camelot. And you know why I remember that? Is because when Killian dies and everyone mounts this expedition to go to the underworld to get him back, it's really a kick in the teeth to Regina, because Regina's like true love has died very recently, and everyone's just like, yep, he's dead, nothing we can do. Nobody tries to revive him, and everyone kind of like gets on Regina's case for mourning too much. And yet as soon as Emma's true love dies, everyone's like, yeah, we gotta save him from being dead, and it's really unfair. So let's call it a day there, because honestly, that's all I can remember about any of this. Season 7 was set up to be a reboot so that the show could keep going indefinitely, but everyone hated Season 7 so much that they ended up cancelling it. In the final episode, they've dealt with all the magical shenanigans again. I can't remember how, but in the very final episode, a portal opens and out comes Emma Swan, Killian Jones, and they have got a new baby. Curse is broken, everyone has their memories back, Henry and Cinderella get back together, and that's it. That is the end of Once Upon a Time. That's how it ends. And frankly, like, it's a very anticlimactic end to what was, at certain points, a very good show. Most of the time, it was a mediocre to actively bad show, but every now and then it was really, really good. And, you know, despite my issues with season 6, I do think we got like a relatively satisfying conclusion. So the fact that season 7 comes along and just kind of undermines all of that is frustrating. I understand why most fans did not watch it, but that's really all there is to say about Once Upon a Time. That is all that I can remember. Alright, so if you watched all of the... Shut up, Light. Okay, so if you're seeing this, that means that you watched through this entire video. I can't help you with that, frankly. That was your choice. You chose to waste your time in this way, and I mean, I appreciate you doing it, but the reasons why you felt you needed to do that to yourself are something that you need to explore, perhaps with a therapist. For real though, thank you so much for watching. If you want to argue with me about my terrible takes about some of these characters, if you love Neil, feel free to comment below, but just know that I'm not going to change my mind. I hate Neil. I'm never going to stop hating Neil. I am considering maybe doing other videos in the future where I try to remember the plot of other things, but frankly, I don't think anything is ever going to be as convoluted and ridiculous as Once Upon a Time. But if that is something you would like to see, let me know in the comments and subscribe to get any future videos. Alright, that's more than enough words from me. I'm gonna go. Bye guys.